What the fuck? One sec. 1 second, Zoe. My internet's starting to act funky. Oh crap! We're already live. What? Oh well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. All right, yeah, cool. We had a little internet lapse for a moment. So welcome. Thank you for your patience. We are here with a guest, Zoe. I wanted to make sure I get the pronunciation proper. She's currently backstage at the moment. All right, she's checking in from Malaysia. We are currently 14 hours apart in time difference, and this is one of the moments in life that I just feel is so incredible. We get to see the advancements of what technology can bring and the connection between all the people in the world, bringing in intelligence from different backgrounds and cultural understandings. So I got Zoe next door right now, and she's going to bring in a unique perspective, a couple wow factors. You know, the fourth house, the eighth house, the 12th house. These are the houses that go completely unseen. They all have some relationship to death, and they all carry different aspects of death itself as a concept. All right. And Zoe is going to be one of the people who's going to bring us in. And also on this Libra moon, which I think is absolutely incredible that we just happen to be on Libra moon, intuition, gotta love it. On this Libra moon, we're going to be doing a synastry chart. So we're going to be taking one and two charts. We're going to put them together and we're going to show you on overlapping. I have actually never done this on my channel. I've only done this in backdoor readings, but this is going to be beautiful because the first time on this particular channel, we're going to be able to introduce this and have two astrologers coming in. So please, without further ado, give Zoe some respect, give her some love. I'm going to bring her forward onto the front stage. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up and the likes button. Thank you for all of our channel members here on YouTube, as well as the backdoor members that meet up with us bi-weekly. All right, this is going to be an amazing show. Let's do it. We have Zoe right here. We're going to give her a little
Hi
banner switch
everyone.
up. Hey, 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 what's going on, girl?
Perfect. I'm very happy to be here and for this opportunity. I feel very nice
Super dope.
and excited.
Absolutely. So, just to even start off, is there any placements from yourself that you would like to share with the audience so they can kind of get a little feel for you of like, who is she? Even, we got a bunch of astrology buffs on here, right? So even so they can get a feel for like, okay, who am I talking to? Who am I listening to?
So my big three is I'm Sun in Taurus, Rising Taurus, and Moon in Virgo. And I was talking about the 12th house, 8th house, and 4th house
Hmm.
because I also have placement in those houses. So
Okay.
my sun is in the 12th house, but only in Placidus, but I still consider having this 12th house feeling. I also have my Mercury in the 12th house
Hmm.
and Pluto in the 8th house. So let's say those
Okay.
houses are part of my life. So I kind of experience it in my daily life. So I'm happy to talk
Absolutely.
about it, about my experience.
Okay, yeah, definitely want to hear about that. I actually just met a 12th house Capricorn recently in a reading I did a couple days ago. So definitely excited to hear about the suns in the 12th house, right? Like that's like this ooh forbidden house kind of thing going on in the sun placement. For everybody that's in the chat, you see the question down there. Do you have a fourth house, eighth house, or 12th house stellium? You could take a moment to vote over in the YouTube chat. That said, okay, Zoe, what we got going on? What are we going to debunk today around the fourth house, the eighth house, the 12th house? I know the eighth house is one of the most feared houses. The 12th house maybe
Yeah.
one of the most misunderstood houses. But as we get into it, what do all these houses have in common, even just to begin?
So all those houses, they're related to death, but in a different way. And also to everything emotional, everything kind of dark. So it's why I think most of people kind of fear those houses or misunderstand it, because it's very mysterious and misunderstood subjects.
Mm.
But I would say the 8 and 12 house are the houses that are the most feared by people.
Mm-hmm.
And because the fourth house still be about the family, so is something kind of familiar. But the 12 and the 8 house are really about those hidden stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kind of fascinating vibe,
Mm.
and we talk later why they are so mysterious and feared by people.
For sure.
Yeah, mainly it's about death, so
For sure.
it's
Absolutely.
something most
Absolutely.
people fear.
All right. So let's get into the fourth house. Like, what is the fourth house? We're coming from the third house. After the fourth, we're going to step into the fifth house. What about the fourth house is special? If you gave us the traditional understanding of it and the subterranean understanding, what would you say this has to do?
So in a traditional astrology perspective, this house is called the subterranean house. It's because
Mm-hmm.
if we take the movement of the sun, when the sun reaches the fourth house, it will be the lowest point of the day, which is midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a point there is no light. We are in the middle of the night. We're at time we are at home, and it's called subterranean because when you're under the earth, there is no light. It's very
Mm.
dark, and it's a kind of mysterious place, introspection place.
Mm-hmm.
And there's everything private that happened because if we look at the movement of the sun, depending where the sun is, can give you some clues about if the house is more private or more public. For example, when the sun is at the highest point in the sky, the midheaven, we are
Mm-hmm.
usually around midday, is the most public house, the most, let's say, visible time. But then the opposite, which is the IC, the fourth house, is the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the most private point in a chart. So it's why there is many mysteries and emotional stuff to talk about this house.
Mm, I see. I see.
Uh,
So we all heard about home and family, right? I think most people understand that the fourth house about home and family. Um,
yeah.
but if you were to elaborate on that, what's different about it? What can you bring to the table?
This is a very general definition of the fourth house, but
For sure.
there is much more. It's always about symbolism. So before, I forgot to say something. It's
No,
also
no,
an
please.
angular house.
Ah,
Because it's angular, is one of the most important houses in a chart. But this one is special because, like I said before, it's the point where the sun is the lowest. Usually, angular houses are very dynamic, but this one is dynamic, but inside the person is really this kind of driving force very deep inside us. So to come back about the home and family, yes, it's true. This definition is correct, but it's too general. We need to be more accurate.
mm-hmm.
So it would be more about the early home life. So what conditioned us, which is our parents.
Mm,
But the fourth house, there is some debate if whether it's about the father or the mother.
mm-hmm.
Me, I don't stand on any side. I'm just thinking that is the most caring parent, the most warm, the most emotional parent.
Right, right. No, that's a beautiful take on it. It's like, who's the warmest parent getting potentially us in touch with our emotions? Would you say getting us in touch with our emotions or potentially the one suppressing our emotions?
The one that we condition our emotional reaction, the one that will give us more emotional understanding,
Mm-hmm.
care,
Mm-hmm.
and this parent that tends to be more emotional. There is always one of our parent that will show more his emotion, be more
Sure,
sensitive, and
sure.
yeah.
1,000%. So if you're in the chat right now, I want you to just let us know, is your dad or your mom the emotional one? I feel like we might get a couple surprise dads being the emotional ones if we actually stay honest up in the chat. But all right, so take us a little bit deeper, right? So we got the early childhood conditioning. Um, who might be the most caring parent? But what else is the fourth house about? You know, give us your take.
It's also about everything related to our childhood. So if we look at the planets in our fourth house, we can get a kind of weather forecast of our childhood, how it was. Was it
Mm-hmm.
difficult? Was it more relaxed, joyful?
Oh,
And
forgive me. That's a little bit early. I jumped the gun, ladies and gentlemen. My bad. But you will see these charts later. This is going to be an individual chart. ZoÉe is going to go over another individual chart, and then we're going to go ahead and overlap these two later. So this is the synastry that we discussed that we're going to talk later. But I jumped the gun, so that was I just wanted to get it ready. Feel free, ZoÉe, get it back to it.
so to come back, yes, everything related to our childhood, the beginning of our life, our early conditioning. So everything we receive from our family, you know, how our family educate us, what kind
Mm-hmm.
of environment we live in, and
Mm-hmm.
this later will shape our personality.
Have you ever seen like with fourth house who might be more apt to being homeschooled versus like an international school or like you know, a private school? Is would the fourth house give you some indications of that?
Um, you can know if it's homeschool, but the houses that is more related to school, in my opinion, is more the third house and ninth
Mm-hmm.
house and
Mm-hmm.
Mercury. But for example, a Mercury in the fourth house can be a significator of homeschool,
Sure.
since
Okay.
it's like the learning Mercury in the fourth house, which is home, learning
Mm-hmm.
at home is homeschool. So
Okay.
everything is kind of logic.
For sure. For sure. I was curious because I had a client of mine asking about like, you know, moving abroad and whether they're going to homeschool or whether they're going to, you know, try to get their kids into the school internationally. So I just was curious, trying to like bring some highlights out. So cool. Okay. So what else? What else we got on the fourth house?
Everything related to the homeland. So what country you came from, what country you feel like home.
Mm,
Basically, it's our origins. The fourth house is everything we come from.
mm. Let me check in with this guest right quick. I'm a fourth house Cancer. Boom. Double up. Both my parents I consider emotional. I felt more emotionally comfortable with my father. All right. Definitely, if you know, can you? Oh no, she said Cancer. Okay, give me a moment. So my mother's emotional standpoint and her leading the home per se had a negative effect. Anything you got that you might want to contribute just to that fourth house Cancer placement that she got in the comment she gave on the screen?
I'm also a fourth house Cancer, so I understand this person because I consider both my parents emotional. Uh, but the way to know which one it is more related is to look the parent that bring you in the public life, because this one will be related to the 10th house, then the other one will be more related to the fourth house.
Okay, okay. What's up, Astro Guide? I see you in the chats. All right. So as we keep digging in the fourth house before we move on to the eighth, um, we so far know this is the early life home, right? We understand that it's the most caring parent, so it's not necessarily just the mother, it's not necessarily just the father. It's more of the who's the parent who's more caring, got us in touch with our emotions, potentially conditioned us, the early childhood conditioning at the beginning of our life, you know, relating to our homeland as well. Um, if we moved into the death topic, I mean, I feel like this is really your unconventional approach off the rip. Like, what does the fourth house have to do with death?
In some ways, the fourth house is related to death, but in a way that we come back where we come from.
Hmm.
So it can be the coffin we're in when we die. It can be also the end of our life, the time we retire. Because if we consider the sun is at the lowest point, is the time of our life we have the less vitality, because the sun is our life energy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's death in a sense of coming back where we came from.
I see. I see. So, this out of curiosity, a Pisces in the fourth house, what might their coffin be like?
Um, It can be something very spiritual, very mystical. Maybe it can be related to water, related to the
Mm-hmm.
nature. Maybe the person will want to be buried close to the sea.
Mm. Mm.
Something maybe magical, because Pisces like this kind of things in general.
I was almost getting like having their ashes spread out in the sea,
Oh
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like something like, but I'm almost getting like, because I'm such an imaginary type person. I'm almost getting like, look, we're going up in a charter plane, and from the heavens itself, we're gonna rain the ashes down into the middle of the Indian Ocean.
That's a
Okay,
great
cool.
idea.
I know, right? I'm like, I have a Pisces fourth house as well. So like, this is
Oh,
interesting. That might be how I always joke with this. When I was younger, um, I used to actually tell myself that when I die, I'm talking like grade school, like I'm talking like, first early childhood education. I used to always tell myself, and I think I drew it one time on a paper, that I want to die jumping out of a plane with no parachute on LSD. Not kidding. That's
wow.
I've never taken LSD, and I told myself this is going to be the first and the last time. I'm going to jump with no parachute on LSD. And I remember I saw this picture like on Google Photos. I don't even know when. It kind of just popped up, and I was like, this is how I'm going out. And so now I'm hearing you say it's a coffin, and it kind of makes me think like maybe this is the spiritual departure.
That's really fourth house in Pisces, the LSD and all those kind of illusion
I
stuff.
I know, right? Like, and I was a kid. I was like a little kid too. Like, that's the weirdest part. Um,
Wow.
Strangely, my mom was in Sagittarius, and my eighth house is in Sagittarius. Okay, we're gonna maybe try to come back to that Sagittarius eighth house when we get there. We're gonna finish with the fourth. My dad was a Taurus in the first house placement, so we'll come back to the Sag in the eighth. I like Sag in the eighth. I would love to hear what you have to say about it, but we're gonna come back to that comment, and we're gonna finish the fourth for the time being. Um, so okay, we got the death. Anything else you want to elaborate on fourth house being revolving around certain topics of death?
I think that's it for death. Now we
Okay,
can talk
cool.
about the introspection part.
Mm-hmm.
So fourth house is the deepest point of ourself,
Mm-hmm.
our deepest emotions. So everything related to introspection, practices like meditation, this kind of self-care, time we take to dig our conscious, dig what we feel inside, but also private spaces is related to
Mm-hmm.
the fourth house. So it's really the time we take some time alone, we just chill, and we just explore our emotion, take this time for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So let's try to give a couple of examples. If you know your fourth house, if you're in the chat and you know your fourth house, go ahead and drop that in the chat. So maybe ZoÉe can give you some insight on what that fourth house might look like when it comes to retreat. How might they meditate? How might they go back and nurture themselves or take care of themselves? So if you know your fourth house, drop it. For now, we know Pisces and we know Cancer are in the chat. So how might a Pisces take retreat, meditate, and do some self care? What might that look like?
Pisces are a sign that needs a lot of alone time. Is, I would say, the sign that needs the most introspection.
Mm-hmm.
They might like a lot, everything related to escaping. It can be through meditation, it can be through drugs, but of course I don't encourage that.
Sure.
uh, it can be through artistic practices, so creating anything creative, spending hours alone painting, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or doing music, singing. Pisces is really this uh, incredibly creative sign,
Mm.
and usually when they're alone is where they find their creativity, and it can also help them to recharge emotionally.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I got a fourth house Pisces. I can totally attest to this. I can totally attest to this. Even the singing, like me singing without even knowing I can sing, and it's kind of like you just said, like when I sing, I prefer it alone. Like it's like I would like go to a park. I remember when I was living in Colombia and like it was quarantine time, and it's like I would go to the park when no one else can go outside, right? Like when no one can
Wow.
go outside, and I would just walk my way to the park, and it was a really, really close park too, right? And so it was that much harder to get in trouble. But and I would sing. I remember this one time like singing and like crying at the same time. And I literally cried because I was like, I didn't even know my voice was this beautiful. That's literally like that's
Wow.
the best. You know what I mean? Like I had no idea. It would just kind of come out. I was like, oh my god, like like if I'm not being shy, I can do this. But it was like by myself in the process. So that's really cool. I see Astro Guy says she loves your accent and
Oh, thank you
energy
so
rocks.
much.
Yeah,
That's
thousand
that's a
percent.
French accent.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so we got a couple. We didn't get any other fourth houses in the chat. So we talked introspection, right? Private spaces, self
Yeah.
care.
So everything related to emotions also. So
Mm-hmm.
all our emotional life, our inner child, and our deep emotion. But it's more the conscious parts. The
Mm-hmm.
subconscious will be related to the eighth house, and we talk about it later.
Okay.
So everything we feel, we can look at the fourth house and dig into it.
So I want to tell everybody real quick: drop your fourth house. If you're new in the chat, drop your fourth house, and so we can kind of expand the scope. Whether there's somebody who has a fire fourth house, somebody who has an earth fourth house. Because right now we know about we're getting some water being Cancer, Pisces, but just to see like what this looks like, air changes drastically, right? Um,
Yeah.
so go ahead and drop your fourth house in the chat. So what about emotions? Like what more can you tell? Where your fourth house is in Cancer as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's a deep question. I was going to say something like, what might your fourth house look like? But that now gets super personal if you feel like sharing.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm very open about that. My fourth house has no planet inside, but
Mm-hmm.
it's in Cancer in Placidus house system. Uh, but then in whole sign houses, it will be in Leo. But I consider the Cancer one corresponding more to me. So personally, I feel a lot this need to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
This need to have a lot of private space. I'm the kind of person that love to lock myself in a room because
Sure.
I'm sure I won't be disturbed and uh, yeah, taking this time for me to introspect my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm quite of a sensitive person. And my home was an environment that is very emotional,
Mm-hmm.
not always in the best way, but my parents are the kind of people that show a lot their emotions, so I get conditioned in this way to express it. And I live in an environment. My parents didn't really respect my private space,
Mm.
so now I think that later in life I try to do the opposite. I give myself a lot of private space.
So you think with the fourth house being in Cancer, that the early would you say like that might be like a widespread like just summary of like Cancer in the fourth house, like okay, early childhood conditioning, my private space not have may not have been respected, so this is where the conditioning kind of formed me to want to more consciously as I age take more space, more privacy, more time alone to just would you say that's like a kind of like a across the board almost for at least for a Cancer fourth house?
I think it depends on people, but of course it will condition us. But I would say it's more in a way that my parents overprotect me, so
Mm,
I react in opposition to that. So sometimes, if you have Cancer in the fourth house, your parents will give you a lot of privacy, but they will always have this aspect that your home is an environment of a lot of care, but can be overly caring, overly protective.
mm-hmm. No, I hear that 1,000%. Thank you for those likes and those thumbs up. I do see you on the chat. If you're watching this on replay, thank you for being here, seeing this as well, catching up with the chat and the discussion. So, is there anything you want to elaborate on emotionally speaking around what the fourth house might bring, or before we move to the wow factors?
Uh, I think I think the fourth house can also describe some emotional habits we have. because this is a conscious part of our psyche. It's not really about trauma, but it's about what kind of emotional pattern we have and we fall in.
Mm.
So, for example, I see people with Pluto in the fourth house, they feel very unsettled. Usually, it's people that get a lot of changes and transformation inside their family.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they move to different places often. They didn't feel really stable, and those people, they will feel that inside themselves, inside their emotion, that we have this kind of insecurity from Pluto, for example.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. Pluto. When you said it, I was like, ooh, I don't want a Pluto in the fourth house. It just made me feel that way. I was like, ooh. I mean, I feel like anybody could do that to Pluto in any house, but ooh. Um, I see here we got a Saturn in Cancer. Wow. Yes, I'm a crab at home, and I love to do things that I love. It's very important to feel emotionally secure. Anything you might want to elaborate with a Saturn in the fourth house, or Saturn in Cancer? Excuse me.
Yeah, Saturn in Cancer is in exile, so it can be a struggle for consistency, for challenges, for going into the public life.
Mm.
And it's usually people also have Saturn in Cancer. We feel the need to put this organization, this seriousness, this wisdom inside the home life, inside our family. So usually we will try to put that kind of organization inside our home life, and it can be some struggles about emotion, about insecurities. We always feel like we like care, like love. Personally, so I experience it and I see it on other people who got
Mm-hmm.
Saturn in Cancer.
Mm. No, that makes total sense. You know what's interesting? I remember one day I was doing a live around like masculine and feminine energy, and Raina in the chat. Now I just sent a link. I was like, look, if somebody wants to kind of come and share some of their personal stories at one point of the live, just click this link. Same link I sent you, but different for their live. And she could not get on the link for some reason. The link would not work for her, and it works for other people. And I just
Oh.
kind of make that point because you said they might have challenges stepping into the public, where obviously YouTube is a public space, right?
Mm.
Where it just kind of made me feel like, man, like maybe like somewhere Saturn was almost whether protecting her or like not allowing that public expression somehow, some way on an emotional level. I just thought it was really interesting that you had said that, and now I see this kind of linking up.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how it works practically.
And real life application, right?
Yeah, I think it's the best way to study astrology is to really not just stay on our textbook and videos, but really see in our daily life. Personally, is how I learn the best.
For sure, 1,000%, 1,000%. Okay, cool. What might the fourth house do with the inner child? I've heard some people say inner child is more Leo fifth house, but I understand there's a fourth house inner child story as well. Anything you want to share?
I think it depends what the people think. It can be related to both fourth house and fifth house, but since I consider that as a more emotional thing, the inner child and related to childhood, I put it in the fourth house because our inner child is this kind of child brain inside us that didn't really finish to develop. And
Mm,
this is related to our childhood, the way our parents cared about us, educate us. So it might be related to the way we receive their emotions. So for me, it's more a fourth house things, and it's something very deep inside us, very emotional. So for me, it's a more fourth house thing.
sure, sure, sure. No, I could totally understand that. Um, and when we talk inner child, it's kind of like it's one of these unconscious stories, right? Where once you get into Leo, Leo is starting to bring consciousness, right? It's starting to bring more conscious awareness, having that
Mm.
sun element, but the moon is still in that unconscious aspect, ruler of Cancer and type energy. So I can fully understand how fourth house is actually a better indicator of what those inner child might look like. But you said earlier that the fourth house is not necessarily the wounds, right? It's not
Can
necessarily
you
like
repeat?
where we. You said earlier that the fourth house is not necessarily where we're wounded, right? Like where we get our wounds. So would you say that it's inner child wounds, or just kind of what an inner child is forming?
The forming of our inner child, because the ones can come from any part of the chart. It's
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of tricky to know, but usually it's more those emotional houses in which we have ones.
Sure, sure.
Like for example, usually if someone has no planet in the fourth house, the ones will maybe be somewhere else. But if we see, for example, Pluto, Saturn, those kind of more difficult planets in the fourth house,
Mm-hmm.
usually the ones can come from here. But also for example, if someone has the ruler of the fourth house with difficult aspect or conjunct a difficult planet, the ones can come from there.
Mm. I see. I see. Let me see what this says. I'm an eternal child at heart, truly. I I constantly nurture the little girl in me. I'm a Leo in the fifth house, Aries in the 12th. So I'm excited about this live. Okay, cool. So we'll definitely be able to cover when we get to the 12th house. We'll be able to cover Aries in the 12th. I think that's an interesting placement to have in the 12th house as well. So definitely going to ask for Zoe's input when we get there. So Zoe, so far we talked fourth house. We said home, family, being the early conditioning, the homeland, right? The most caring parent. Um, and that's actually the first time I've heard that for the most caring parent, but I really, really love it. So thank you for that takeaway. The beginning of life, right? Death, we kind of went deeper into retirement, the end of life, um, you know, the coffin. And I thought that was another cool, like, wow factor for me. It's like, oh, snap. Like, I never thought about the fourth house being a part of the type of coffin that we return to, right? But it's like your sense of coming back where we came from. We talked introspection
Yeah.
in the fourth house, meditation, private spaces, self care. You went into the emotional life of that fourth house and what that could look like, deep emotions, finally with the inner child. So, where do you want to take us in this fourth house discussion as we move forward?
I want to finish with a kind of signification of the fourth house that people don't often think about
Mm-hmm.
is anything related to our past and family history. So
Past and family history. Okay.
we can have a lot of indication about our lineage, our genealogy, so our ancestors, our
Mm-hmm.
roots,
Mm.
also the traditions that came from our family, um, and also what kind of family vibe we give. Like, for example, we can know if someone has a family that is more rooted into traditions, or a family
Mm-hmm.
that is more, innovative. For example, fourth house in Aquarius. Usually, someone with displacement, we have a family that want to break the traditions, want to be what is more looking forward for the future. Maybe they don't care so much about everything old, so the traditions. But someone with um, a Cancer in the fourth house will be usually more conservative about the traditions, or Capricorn in the fourth house.
What about like a Virgo fourth house?
This will be a house. Yeah, they're conservative, but their values is maybe about being humble, being useful for others, helping others,
Mm.
organization, keeping the home clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's some examples.
Sure, 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 sure. That's cool. I actually liked your excuse me, your Aquarius in the fourth house, right? Where when I look at it, even in whole sign, for example, my Aquarius is fourth house. I know I gave earlier the example of Pisces in the fourth, and I find ways in which I resonated with it. But at the same time, I resonate truly with my whole Aquarius in the fourth house. And it's like I told you even earlier today, I was going this live. Like, nope, I'm not in the States. You know, even when I go home, I remember having like a discussion with my uncle, and it's like, what about the family traditions? What about the family values? And I kind of, yeah, he had that conversation with me, and I was just like, look at my life. You know, it's like, yeah, it kind of says something to what you said. It's like, I'm truly, the way I felt in that moment is like I'm taking us out of, you know, the traps of the family conditions and the traps of the genealogy, and like I'm progressing us, consider, and the way I looked at it, like, you know, 5, 15 lifetimes ahead, where it's like I may be the oddball in the family now, and that's okay. And I just kind of had that discussion with him and I felt like that kind of plays into the fourth house of Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius is very like this, usually kind of rebel and want to do what he wants. Aquarius is really this sign, very individualistic, and usually bring revolution and changes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I felt that. I felt that strongly. It was like, look, you know, like it's like being able to see the ground that we're already on, right? Being able to see what the ancestors to this point were able to build. It's like I'm thankful that y'all were able to do that because y'all gave me an opportunity to do it 15 generations out. You know what I mean? It's just like to take it
Yeah.
just so much far ahead that I had to like look at it and have conversation with my sisters. Like, look, like even when I thought about it, like I like young and like my 20 like 21, 22 or something, I remember like saying early to my mom, like, look, you know, my sister is going, she's gonna have to be about 33 years old before, you know, blah, blah, blah makes sense. And it's funny because like as she starts getting there, they're like, yo, I remember you said about 33 years old. And then it's just like I kind of really resonate with that whole family fourth house, like just that like futuristic thinking, you know, on
Yeah. Yeah.
today this is this, but you know, I'm trying to help this out whether y'all understand right now or not. Like I gotta do it. I just know somewhere deep in my bones that this is what needs to happen. So no, I really enjoyed that fourth house interpretation. Okay, cool. What else you got about the genealogy
Um,
or the
we
ancestry?
can we can know what kind of vibe our family give. Like for example, the fourth house in Aquarius, like we said before, it will be a kind of family that don't like necessarily to follow the rules, that can be innovative, maybe a very scientific family, very intellectual family. So also the seventh house can tell us about our kind of family traits, but I
Mm,
think the fourth house is more ancestors, past, and our roots.
sure. So I know we're not on the seventh house, but how might the seventh house play in to the same?
Our seventh house is related to others, and I learned that at the beginning of our life, we are more having traits of our seventh house.
Mm,
So, for example, I have Scorpio in my seventh house, so I might be more having Scorpio traits. And the goal is to become slowly more our ascendant, which is the opposite, so which is ourself. So we need to kind of detach from those family traits. My family has a lot of Scorpio traits, so they can be a bit obsessive, very emotional. They love psychology. They love all those kind of things. So I
mm,
find this interpretation to really resonate with me.
mm-hmm.
So it's more the kind of family environment we grow in that we need to detach from.
Beautiful. Now I want to throw a challenge out there because you're a Taurus rising and I'm a Scorpio rising now. So if you gave it, and we're gonna leave the seventh house, but if you hit the flip, right? You gave it where, okay, that's you with the seventh house in Scorpio. What about the seventh house in Taurus? What might that person, or even me, or another Scorpio rising, what might that person's beginning of life kind of have already embedded as a shadow trait as I work towards the opposite end of the spectrum?
Maybe at the beginning of your life, you were very much more grounded into the tradition, into more simple things. Maybe your family, they enjoy everything related to nature, to good food, all those Venusian things. Maybe
Mm,
they're materialistic. Maybe they put a lot of importance on money. Maybe at the beginning you were also like this, but later you learn to detach because Scorpio learn to detach. Maybe you learn also to see also what's invisible, not only what's material, but what is invisible, spirituality, the energies, our emotion.
Mm.
And usually Taurus is a sign that is very simple, grounded, but can be too much roots inside their habits. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
learn to break those habits and take a more challenging life because Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So you may do
Mm.
life more intense. I
Right.
don't know if it's like this.
1000%. I mean, hell yeah. like no, 1000%. I was listening to it. The biggest one you said was for me to detach from the traditional foods of my family and the culture. That was the big one. Like, you know, the foods of our family growing up, I mean, it's just so good. If I'm being honest, it's ridiculously good. In a lot of ways, like if it's just based off flavor and taste, I like wouldn't want to trade it. But the problem is it's truly unhealthy, like in all sincerity. It's like, when I go home now to visit and it's like a holiday and we're eating like the traditional foods growing up, I mean, my skin, like I'll turn into a Oompa Loompa. I'm not even kidding. Like I actually had that happen. I was eating at my sister's house one of these days. I went home a couple months ago, and my entire left side of my body was just like inflamed because
Wow.
I don't eat those foods anymore. Like like not even close. But I can truly see how that matters because we know Taurus is food, right? And it's like, agriculture and those things. So that's really cool. I'm really happy to hear that. That's really interesting. Sweet. Where are you taking this?
I think now we can talk about the eighth house.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. Let's do that. So, eighth house. If you're in the chat, real quick, drop your eighth house wherever it's at. My eighth house is actually Cancer, but it's kind of one of the same things where, like, whole sign to Placidus. I feel like in the beginning, Cancer in the eighth resonated a lot. And as I kept playing around, I started realizing how Gemini works really well in my eighth house. Like even for just me and who I am. Um, so those are my two examples when it comes down to it. But I'll let you kind of give your eighth house up front. In the meanwhile, everybody drop your eighth house in the chat, and maybe we'll be able to discuss that. So, what's the eighth house in your interpretation?
In traditional astrology perspective, it's called the inactive house. So
Mm,
already we get a sense of this house being kind of challenging. And it's called inactive because from a perspective of the ascendant, it doesn't receive any of the five traditional aspects. So this house doesn't receive the light from the ascendant.
mm,
So it's why we say this house is dark as well as the 12th house, because there is no aspect, no light from the ascendant, which is our self, our life, our vitality. So also in the 8th house is the moment where the sun is starting going down, reaching the 7th house and then setting. So we are in these kind of energies that go down, that start to be less energetic, less active. So this house is quite dark because any house that doesn't aspect the ascendant uh, with one of the five traditional aspects is kind of difficult to use our senses inside. We can't use the traditional senses to see, touch, hear. We need to use our intuition. We need to feel more. So it's
mm,
why when you have planet in the 8th house, it can take more time to learn how to use those planets because they are kind of hidden. So it will be slower, but we will still succeed to use them. It will be maybe later in life or maybe
mm,
in a way that's more intuitive.
mm. That was really beautiful. I actually really enjoyed what you said. I got chills on the right side of my arm at one point. It made me want to ask, right? Like, um, when you said you might have to, you know, really take a more intuitive approach to activating that house, even if it's later in life. It makes me wonder, like, okay, for air signs, what does that look like? You know, for Earth sign. I'm almost curious for like the water houses. You can almost feel like, okay, cool, naturally in line with intuition in a traditional sense. But what might like these intellectual houses look like? Even these practical houses when it comes to intuition in a practical sense. That's another curiosity.
This can be more complicated if it's in hair signs or earth signs, since they are more intellectual and practical. But I
Mm-hmm.
think they can use that at their advantage by trying to notice, be attentive when they feel an emotion, when they notice a kind of trauma pattern that they keep repeating. Maybe they can learn about the subject of the eighth house, like learning about esoterics, astrology, psychology,
Mm.
magic,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because earth signs love learning. So by learning about this, they can have a better sense of how to get the planets in their eighth house, or just how to use their eighth house in a way that fit them.
That's actually really cool. What about fire in the eighth? Actually, we have a Sagittarius eighth, for example. What about fire in the eighth houses? How might they? Because the intellectual, that's actually 1,000%. When I look at it, it's like, okay, you're right. My Venus being in the eighth house, it wasn't until later that I started doing learning. It wasn't until my Saturn return, I feel like, until I started really looking to learn around occult sciences, right? And so that was beautiful. What about like a fire in the eighth house? Doesn't even have to be Sag specific, but just fire in the eighth houses as a element.
Personally, I have Sagittarius in the eighth house, so I can feel how to use those energies.
Okay.
We say that fire signs are also intuitive, but it's not the same way than the water signs. The water signs are more emotional, intuitive, but the fire signs are more intuitive, just using their instincts. It's why they act so fast. They just do things. They don't think much because they just feel like doing it. They take action,
Mm.
so they can use those energies to just dig into anything scary.
Bless you.
To
Salud. I don't know what a te souhaite in français, no? A te souhaite?
Yeah, it's correct,
Uh-huh.
perfect.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they can use their strength to dig into anything scary, to just try to explore, to dig into themselves, and
Mm.
maybe they can get interested into beliefs, religion. It can give them a sense of connection with a higher soul, higher
Mm-hmm.
self.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's beautiful. I actually really like that breakdown. We have a Gemini Sun, Mars, Mercury, and Vesta, Vertex, all in the eighth house.
Oh.
Delicious, delicious. Corvette Cam, I wonder. I hope you heard what she said earlier about the eighth house being inactive, and how we kind of got to like really work, potentially even just with time for it to start to activate. That was really cool. I also liked how you said, fire is instinctively intuitive, rather than the emotional intuition that may be the natural thought process. And I just resonated with that. I don't even have fire in those houses, but it just, I mean, maybe because I'm a triple Aries, it just made sense. I was like, yeah. Okay, cool. So, what we got in the eighth house and the non? You spoke a little bit about the non-traditional aspect to the ascendant, not receiving light.
Yes.
And so, as that sun is ready to set, we're in those dark houses. We know that. How do you elaborate from here in the eighth house?
Uh, since it doesn't receive any light, it's a house that can lack vitality. That is
Mm.
kind of difficult to activate and use. And since the sun is ready to set, we will slowly fall down. Sorry, we will slowly fall
Okay.
down into introspection, into a time we slow down. We are maybe slowed down by something outside of us. Maybe I think a lot of planets in the eighth house can be difficult for our vitality, for our health, because, for example, if the sun is in the eighth house, the sun often represents our vitality. If it's in the eighth house, it's difficult to access. Maybe
Mm.
we can feel like we always struggle to get this energy, and maybe we'll get it slower in life. And maybe we can get it through other ways than the traditional ways, to doing more introspective things. Maybe those people, they find their energy when they spend time alone, studying about psychology, for example.
Maybe even, I mean, I know this is also part of where the trauma potentially can lie as well, or like,
Yeah.
something where we got to dig deep to find. So, what does eighth house have to do with trauma?
Eighth house can be associated to Pluto. I know in traditional astrology they don't associate to Pluto, but in modern astrology we tend to associate it with Scorpio and then Pluto, which is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And because Pluto represents our trauma, those kind of grief, loss, very difficult things, our eighth house can come to explain where it comes from, those trauma, about what area of life it is, and the way to overcome them.
1000%, 1000%. We always hear this. One of the key words: other people's assets, other people's resources. Can you explain that to us?
Yes, especially in traditional astrology, they insist a lot on the signification, which is others' assets. So the money of others, but also the finances. So people with a lot of parity to the eighth house can be actually good in this field. Finances, economics. It's also related to taxes, to debt, but also to investments. It's everything we deal with money that doesn't necessarily belong to us, or that we put outside in a bank, or we give to someone.
Mm. I'm getting right now like Chiron in the eighth. How might that specifically around, debt and giving resources to other people to handle or deal with? How might Chiron in the eighth play out a story without even assigning it to a zodiac sign?
Chiron is about an emotional wound that we need to overcome, to then help others overcome it. So it can be related to so many things. It can be related to a trauma about sexuality, about a deep relationship with others, about intimacy, but also about money of others. Maybe we get some struggles about our partner's money. Maybe we have lose a big amount of money in our life. Maybe it can be a fear about everything hidden, about death, about esoterics, about digging into those more psychological things. Maybe it can be big anxiety. There is many things related to the eighth house, and the person need to do this work to try to dig inside themselves and know where it come from.
Sure, sure, sure. I'm almost curious. I see earlier we had a Gemini, Sun, Mars, Mercury, even Taurus, all in the eighth. What about a Sun? What about a Sun sign in the eighth? So before you said how the eighth can lack vitality, being in the shadow of the ascendant. What about when we put it in the Sun sign?
Before I say the person will lack vitality, but it actually depends the condition of the planet, depending the aspect, if
Sure.
it's in detriment, etc. So we need to look at the planetary conditions before being too deterministic and saying you have bad health all your life.
Sure, 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 sure.
But in general, a sun in the eighth house is someone that will shine into those hidden things, that will shine into maybe psychology, into counseling, maybe a sex therapist, maybe a person that will find a lot of vitality into studying those subjects, or maybe someone that will bring light into this dark place. So maybe the person will talk publicly about those taboo subjects like death, sickness, sexuality. So it can be very interesting. We can do a lot of interesting things with a sun in the eighth house.
Cam, I hope you heard that because I know Cam personally, so I hope you heard that. If you're in here still, because I know you're getting ready to do what you're going to do, and I'll leave you alone. I'll leave that alone. But with that said, what about deadly illnesses? Eighth house has one of those elements when those connections to deadly illnesses. And I'm almost curious of how does these deadly illnesses of the eighth house split from the illnesses we might get in the 12th house. So I'll let you choose how you want to kind of word that.
Yeah, the eighth house is related to deadly illnesses in a sense that we fear that. Eighth house is about fears, anxiety. So it's those kind of illnesses we will get and we can do nothing about it. Usually, it's why it's related to death. It's usually this kind of death that scares us. But the 12th house is more about the mental illnesses. It can be also being handicapped for all your life. But the eighth house is really about this scary aspect of the sickness.
So not even necessarily the sickness itself, but being afraid of it at a psychological level.
Yeah, it can. For example, having a lot of planets in the eighth house, we can have this kind of subconscious fear of dying from a big illness. But I would say that the sign and houses that tends to fear more the sickness is the sixth house and Virgo, since they can be kind of hypochondriac, which means
Sure.
they scare lack of hygiene, they scare insanity, they scare not being healthy. But the eighth house is the fear of not knowing what's behind death, what transformation we will go through. Is this fear of the unknown?
Yeah. That resonated. Fear of the transformation. Like I don't know what's on the other side. I see. I actually enjoyed that. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So, as we dip into, the occult practices, the taboo subjects, right? Like I feel like um taboo is a word always associated with the eighth house, but what's the taboo of the taboo? That's kind of almost what I'm like. What is the taboo of the taboo? Like I almost feel like we just taboo. We use the word taboo, and then it's like, oh yeah, taboo. That's enough. But what is this? How do we dig into this occult science of taboo eighth house?
Um, so the eighth house is related to everything hidden. So everything also we fear. So it can be the occult, the mysteries, what we can't see, what we don't know, esotericism, psychology, also counseling and psychotherapy. So it can be anything we dig into the unknown. So let's say we need to dig into it to find the light later. But there is always people with a lot of planet in the eighth house. They can be full of worry and fears, but it can be more subconscious. So the eighth house is why it's rated more through trauma. Is that it's something very deep inside us that sometimes we are not even aware of. So it's why people with planets in the eighth house, it can be good for them that do psychotherapy to do work on themselves, to dig into maybe the trauma they have, because we all have trauma. And it can be kind of taboo because sometimes taboo is defined by the society.
Sure.
But taboo is based on fears. People, they usually don't want to face those taboos. They find it embarrassing, they find it scary, then they will feel emotion and they would just prefer, okay, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about death. I don't want to think about trauma. But then in the long term, the trauma will keep existing and maybe it will slow us down in our life. So we arrive at a moment we will need to face that anyways.
So I'm curious about a couple things. One, I want to kind of give some examples, not give, but listen to some examples about a couple eighth houses. But before we do that, I'm actually really curious what this is, but I didn't want to get lost in trying to read it. silently. So 1 second. Can you speak on the South Node with Chiron, exact 12th house Aries? Can this mean I am knowing of pain coming in this world, but away from the pain later in life via my North Node?
So this can mean an emotional one from a past life, since the South Node is related to past life. Maybe you carry something heavy from past life, so it can be very interesting to do our work about exploring your past lives, especially that you have this Chiron conjunct South Node in the 12th house, so it's a very spiritual house. Maybe you can get interested about the other reincarnation you got before. And because it's in Aries, you will get a lot of energy, impulsion to do it. So, yes, you can have a pain since you arrive in this world, but it doesn't mean you should carry it for life. Because, the goal is to go towards our North Node. But I would say that the South Node and North Node is not the South Node is bad, the North Node is good. No, it's always about balance. Because, for example, in Vedic astrology, the North Node is considered malefic, whether in modern astrology it's considered more positive. So we can show that if we follow too much our North Node, we will also fall into a kind of excess. So the past life still be important, and this life also it's always balancing.
Oh my God, thank you, Zoe. That was absolutely beautiful. For Infinite Faith 8, what I can say to you is my partner does Akashic record readings. That's the first thing that came to my mind. But I also believe that, before you even consider doing Akashic record readings, you should really take the time to meditate on the thought itself, because I feel like Akashic records, I mean, it's infinite, it's deep, and so it's like know what you seem like you know what you want to know. If I'm being honest, based off of how I see the question worded and you being afraid of it, but if it comes down to it, shoot me an email and I'll refer you, to an Akashic record reader that I know. Actually, Corvette Cam was one of the people in the chat who got a reading from her. And he was raving about it. He hit me back up. He was like, yo, thank you. Like, this is a good decision. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm going to move forward from here and get back into to Zoe. I love that. Her name is Zoe. I feel like,
Yeah,
I feel like I could just like, it's Zoe. It's not Zoe. It's Zoe. So.
It's a bit like this. Actually, my name, I'm interested in the signification of names, and I heard my name means life. So this kind of impulsion of life. And I'm a Taurus, Taurus rising. Taurus is the sign of the nature. So I've learned recently that our name can be seen in our charts. The meaning of our name can be seen, like, for example, my name means life, can be related to everything related to the nature, and I have Sun in Taurus and rising in Taurus. So names also have interesting signification to look in the birth chart.
My name actually means Little Rock.
What does it mean?
Little Rock, like piedra pequeñita. See, yeah, like Little Rock. That's literally what it means, and it made a lot of sense. I knew that when I was younger, and it made no sense. I was like, what does this mean? And then as I grew, as I kept aging, it started making sense. And you kind of gave a little bit of the revelation on that earlier when you spoke about, like, okay, I have a Taurus in the 7th house, right? So it's like, okay, I was literally born solid. And it made it literally, like, that's how it was. But I was born little, right? I was born a little kid, right? Like a baby, if you will, but I was still born solid. And it kind of helped me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like fixed stars and asteroids and all that other whatnot.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. So like I was born in the Pisces constellation, like at the foot, like the knot where it ties the knot between the two fish.
Oh, yeah.
And so it kind of, the Little Rock kind of plays a little bit right back into that as well, where it's like it's tying these infinite fish, one going north, one going west. It's tying them together. It's keeping them. So it has this. The best I can say as we move forward, it works right into, like you said, names. It works right into me as a life path 11 of like the whole as above, so below, just tying things together, bringing spirit to earth, earth to spirit, and then meeting here. Um, so if we get into it, let me see what we got. We're in the eighth house. What more would you want to elaborate on when it comes to the hidden or the occult? Is there anything that we missed? The mysteries, things you can't see, esotericism.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Is
Okay. What
any
about the
taboo
What about the
subject?
transformations?
Transformation. So any event in our life that will make us go through a big transformation and a kind of rebirth, like someone in our family is dead, or we get a very painful breakup, uh, will bring transformation. So this 8 hours is related to this. So this can also bring crisis time. Can also bring a kind of detachment. We learn to let go, and also this process of grief, of loss that we need to get through. But it can also be about obsessions. So something I change a bit subject, but something I really like about the 8 hours is that if you look at the sign in your 8 hours, you can know what kind of people will make you obsessed about. Like those people you feel a strong drive for, but you don't know why. You can't explain. So, for example, if you have Gemini in the 8 hours, maybe you feel a kind of thing for Gemini you can't explain.
Yep. Yep. That was me. I did it. I could tell you. Like I said earlier, my Venus is in the eighth, and I'm telling you, it was this Gemini energy I could not stop obsessing about. And it's kind of like, when time played its part, and the transformation was, in a sense, like, I don't even want to say forced, because eventually the transformation just was inevitable. It just became clear at one point that it was like, you don't really just surrender, bro. Like it's like me, like, kind of talking to me. It was like, this is not even a force at this point. It's just like there's nothing left but to transform. But I found myself like obsessing over this Gemini moon. It was just like I found myself just obsessing over this Gemini moon, and it's almost like when you think the moon and what the moon does and reveals, right? It's like, wow, it was revealing my own Venus in the eighth house, revealing my own relationship habits, and it was my own relationship obsessions. It was so, I'm happy that you said Gemini in the eighth. If anybody else has an eighth house that they might want to share, maybe we can kind of break down what that obsession might look like. No, I'm not. I was gonna say I'm curious about an eighth house Sag, but I'm actually not. I'm more curious about like, what is the most unorthodox eighth house obsession that I can try to bring up in the moment. I actually don't know. I have no idea. Nothing is making me feel like, what might an Aquarius eighth house? What might an eighth house Aquarius be like? What might be their obsessions?
They might be very sexually attracted by people that are very Aquarius-like. So intellectual, they can see maybe detached, maybe innovative, unconventional. They will find it literally exciting. They will usually the 8 hours is an attraction we can't even control. It's almost scary. Like, why am I like this? Why am I obsessed with this person? It's really those kind of energies. Whether the 7 hours is more conscious, we can balance it. We'll still feel very attracted. The 8 hours is something very subconscious. It can sometimes be related to our trauma or our past lives. We have go through something in our past lives, or we have a kind of conditioning inside our head that will make us keep on being obsessed with the same kind of people.
Yeah, I'm looking at the thing and I'm seeing like 8:08 on screen and whatnot, like literally like 8:08 p.m. and it's like, man, you're like bringing me back. You're bringing me back because I'm telling you, my Gemini eighth house obsession. It was I feel like it was the obsession of my life, man. I really, really and the funniest thing. And happy birthday, Rye. Rye Bland is in the chat. I don't know if you know Rye. Have you ever connected with him by chance?
I don't know who is him, but happy
Yeah, I don't
birthday.
know. I think it says Rye Bland Astrology. I don't know. I don't know if I saw him on your channel or not, but whatever. Okay, cool. So happy birthday. Esotericism. What might I actually am curious. Something like a Capricorn eighth house. How might they approach esotericism? You know, or this hidden, like what might be hidden from the eighth house Capricorn?
It's very interesting because Capricorn is extremely practical, extremely pragmatic, and the eighth house is kind of the opposite. So maybe they would like to have a lot of proof, of scientific proof, practical proof to those things like psychology, astrology. Maybe they will seek, for example, to make them agree with astrology. You want to show them more practical proof. Look, this heaven happened at this time, and there's this planet, and then they will notice, okay, it's a fact. Capricorns love fact.
Yeah.
So they will
So
have
when you say that,
kind of more practical.
would that relate a lot to like Virgo in the eighth? Would you say, just considering the facts that you're speaking, or?
Yeah, Virgo is the same kind of type, but Virgo is more intellectual than Capricorn. So maybe they will
Sure.
like to learn more. Maybe they will be more curious than Capricorn in general.
So Capricorn might be a little bit more dismissive.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got it. I understand. Okay. I got you. What about, because I'm like loving the whole Taurus. I gotta ask the Taurus. I gotta ask the other Earth house, right? Because like you said, they're almost like it's Earth and it's like spirit, right? So it's like, what about Taurus in the eighth? How might you take that same approach?
Taurus in the eighth is, I would say, it's not that comfortable because Taurus love their routine. They don't like transformation. They like simple and quiet life.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe actually Taurus in the eighth can find us a kind of stability inside these transformations. Maybe when they have challenging time, they can actually succeed to stay quite grounded, stable, simple. They can still enjoy simple things of life, and it can play at their advantage actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, it's cool because it's like, you got the shadow house of itself. So that's really interesting. All right. Thank you. Crisis. Did we talk about crisis by chance, or grief and loss?
Yeah, we talk about it.
Okay, cool. So what's some of these wow factors on the eighth house before we move into the 12th house?
In modern astrology, we tend to associate sexuality with the eighth house. In traditional astrology, it's more the fifth house. But actually, they are both about sexuality, but in a different way. It's always about symbolism. So the sexuality of the fifth house is more for fun, for enjoyment, for pleasure. But the one of the eighth house is more about bonding, merging the energies, this kind of very intense relationships, those deep interactions. Also, the moment we let our instinct, our drives take us. And also, everything related to sexuality can bring a lot of transformation because I would say it's the most intense emotions we can feel is this emotion of being the closest to someone.
No. I'm glad you made that differentiation between the fifth and the eighth. I pretty much agree with you. Right on point. One has an element of fun, being the fifth house, right? It's like, look, this is how I feel tonight. I don't know how I feel next week. Versus like eighth house is kind of like, you're with me for life.
Yeah.
You're with me for life, so you better get used to it. Okay, cool. So you talked about sexuality, the bounding of the eighth house, sexual intimacy. What might intimacy look like for a Libra in the eighth? What's Libra in the
Uh,
eighth sexuality and intimacy look like?
because Libra is always about compromise, balancing both sides. Libra in the eighth often will adapt to what their partner want. They will try to make it equal, balance. Sometimes they can tend to please too much the other person and
Mm-hmm.
don't listen to themselves.
Mm.
But it's really a placement that will make an harmonious sexual relationship.
Sure, sure, sure. What might be the detriment of that? What's the detriment of Libra being in the eighth then?
Uh,
Like
the
if it just
fact
decides
to
to fold, right?
yeah, they can tend to forget themselves to please too much others.
1000%. Let me think of another example when it comes to the eighth and sexuality. Aries in the eighth.
Aries in the eighth, let's
Oh wait, wait,
say
wait! Before you go forward, I need you to put some sauce on this one because I'm having my solar return come up, and I'm going to have my sun solar returning the eighth house specifically. So throw some sauce
uh,
on it.
uh, Aries in the eighth house is like very intense, very dynamic. They, let's say, they have a very high sex drive. They like when it's fast, when it's like kind of dynamic. They will quickly be bored, so they will be very active sexually, but
Hmm.
they can tend to be bored easily. So they need
I mean,
action. They need almost sports into sexuality. They need to bring this kind of challenging side.
okay, I like that. I do agree. I do agree with that. Um, when I hear this, to kind of add into it, it's like the challenge is the key thing you said, right? And so it's like when I think about what does a challenge look like in a committed partnership, right? That becomes the what excites me, if I'm being honest, like the most. Like, what is the challenge? And I say that like I'm in a long-term relationship, right? So it's like, what's the challenge? How do you add the spice? How does Aries add the spice in these where the sign of Aries itself is naturally considered something impatient, but now it's going in the eighth house where it's like that's one of the most patient houses in my personal opinion, right? So it's like, how does that form over time?
Let's say Aries, if they go through a kind of crisis, they will succeed to move on fast. Is their advantage. But to keep the spice on, they will need to experience. For example, it can be doing something more challenging physically, more
Mm-hmm.
tiring, more difficult. If it's too easy, Aries will lose their fire, their excitement.
1000%. What about in this? So would you say the same thing in the spaces of psychology and like psychotherapy, like needing to be challenged?
Yes, actually, what works the best with Aries is if the psychiatrist or the psychologist give them some kind of challenge. Okay, this is your goal, so you need to do that. This will be difficult and challenging. They will actually be excited for it. Whether some signs like
Sure.
cancer might be, oh no, I'm scared of that. I prefer something more reassuring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 1000%. I hear that. But before I move to the next, before I move to the next topic, I gotta ask a selfish question. I gotta ask a selfish question. What about Aries and Jupiter in the eighth?
Aries and Jupiter in the eighth,
In the
or
eighth,
Jupiter and Aries in the eighth.
Jupiter and Aries in the eighth.
This can be a quite lucky placement, depending if it's a night or day chart.
Mm-hmm.
For anything related to money of others and finance, maybe the person can make a big amount of money in their life. But maybe it can be about teaching and sharing about those taboo subjects because Jupiter loves this kind of teaching, giving knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
sharing. So maybe they can be a teachers in psychology, in astrology, or anything occult.
What might shift between a day and a night chart?
If it's a day chart,
And can you clarify what you mean for others watching? What a day and night chart? What you mean?
A day chart is when the sun is on the upper part of the chart, so up to the ascendant, and a night chart will be under the ascendant and under the descendant axis. So you have the axis. If it's under, it will be a night chart. So, for example, the chart that is showing now, the chart inside with the blue planets, the sun is under,
Oh,
so
wait,
it's a night
maybe
chart.
it's easier. This is easier. Sorry, this
Yeah.
is a single chart.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was like a dual chart going on. Okay, this is easier.
So here we can see the sun is up to the ascendant in the sign of Virgo, and the ascendant is down in the sign of Libra. So this is a day chart. But if the sun will be under this axis of ascendant descendant, it will be a night chart. Because the ascendant is the moment where the sun rises, and the descendant is where the sun sets. So this is a concept that comes from Hellenistic astrology, and it will change the condition of the planets. So Mars and Saturn are said to be malefic planets, but Venus and Jupiter are benefic. But if it's a day chart, the most benefic will be Jupiter, and the most malefic will be Mars. If it's a night chart, the most benefic will be Venus, and the most malefic will be Saturn. So it's interesting to look in your chart. If you have a day on that chart, and then what's the most benefic and the most malefic planet, it will give you clues about what's the area of your life that you get the most luck and the one that is the most challenging.
That was really informative. I want to actually type that for people in case they didn't hear it, right? So I'm going to say day chart. Based off of Hellenistic, you're going to look for your malefic. I'm typing it right now. Malefic is going to be Mars.
Yeah.
Versus the benefic is now Jupiter.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm typing that there, step 1. Now, if you're born in the daytime, like you said, if it's on the top, you heard her, I'm gonna move forward. Now you have your night chart, all right? I'm typing it here, night chart. Your malefic is where you now wanna look at Saturn versus your benefic is gonna be Venus. So that was beautiful information. I want to say thank you and shout out to Uranus in the chat. We really appreciate you for dropping a super chat. It's a little bit outside of this, the 4th house, 8th house, 2nd house, but ZoÉe, would you mind giving a little mini interpretation for our guest here on like the 2nd house potentially in Jupiter?
If you have Jupiter in the 2nd house and it's a day chart,
8.9 degrees.
This can make you very lucky about your own possession. So about income, but also about self-confidence, about having a home, having comfort. So, oh, you have a night chart. Okay. So this will still be lucky, but less. It will depend the aspect. But let's say that you were someone that has values, because Jupiter is about our values, our ethics. That is very practical, maybe for you. Work, ambition, the public life is very important. You find that is something meaningful for you. Maybe you find a kind of meaning in life into work, into ambitions. And maybe you're someone very practical in your beliefs, because Jupiter is also about beliefs.
Super beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Actually, no, this is one of my guests that's looking to take some trips abroad. Do you feel like this Jupiter in the 2nd house might really get him a stable home abroad in that 8th degree?
Yes, I think Jupiter in Capricorn is quite stable. They may like traveling, but in a way that is more steady. Maybe they would like to stay longer at a place rather than moving all the time.
1000%. I feel you on that. Thank you. I know that helped him out on a personal level, so I do appreciate you. what we got. So I see we got a couple people now. They're starting to wonder, like, oh snap, I got a day chart. You know, they got their Jupiter in Aries. Good information. Really appreciate you, ZoÉe. What we got going on here? We got the Infinite Faith 8, 4, 12, 8 trine is the home hidden enemies sex triangle. Like is the affair indicator. Hopefully you understand what I'm asking. Thank you, y'all. This is great. I'm a first time listener. Thank you for being on the channel, first time listener. Thank you everybody for hitting that thumbs up and just really rocking with our guest here, showing love and support. I've really been enjoying ZoÉe as well. She's super informative on so many different things. So I really appreciate it. I don't actually know exactly what you're asking in this question, if I'm being honest. 4, 12, 8 trine is the home hidden enemies sex triangle. Are you familiar with what she's saying, ZoÉe?
I'm not sure to understand, but I can answer that the words you give for those houses are only some signification. There is way more. Yeah, we can simplify as the home, hidden enemies, and sex triangle, but there is way more behind. So it's more, let's say, the hidden triangle, all those kind of hidden and dark things and emotional things.
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, thank you. Okay, cool. So it looks like we're getting in close to our 12th house before we work into the synastry part of this discussion. Unless there's something else that we miss in the 8th, let me know.
Yes.
Okay, hit me.
We like to mention something because people often fear the 8th house. If you have planet in the 8th house, it doesn't mean you will suffer all your life. It doesn't mean you will have a deadly illness. Depending the planetary condition, you can be someone that help the people who suffer. You can be like a psychotherapist, psychologist, or helping people through astrology. So we need to remember that it's not always about suffering ourselves. It's most of the time it's helping others who suffer.
Mm.
So no need to fear those houses. Most of the time, it's not us that suffer. It's more helping.
Yeah, and I can attest to that myself. I mean, I have a Mars in the 8th house, and it's like I could totally attest to that. Like, I can say that I've been confused at certain stages of my life as for taking on other people's suffering and not realizing that it was not my own. So I can attest to that. But when things started clarifying and I started just taking care of myself in better ways when I'm working with other people in these therapy and psycho analyzing moments, I started recognizing, like, you know, even if I look back in human design, for example, for my human design people out there, it's like I don't have a defined solar plexus. And so many of y'all would know, like, there's not a really deep emotional center. Like, it's like being able to be empathetic with other people and their emotions. But I myself, it's like it's actually just something where I'm able to understand other people's emotions, and you can take them on, right? Like I could take them on. It's actually easier for somebody with that open center to be conditioned by other people's emotions, and that did happen to me at one point in my life. But when all the smoke and the fog and the darkness cleared, if you will, I started realizing, oh wow, this is actually my gift to other people. It's not actually this curse. It's not my problem in a sense. And it started helping me. I started being able to kind of differentiate projection energy. So if anybody's listening, understand what she just said is 1,000% on. I got 8 people watching at the time frame. We're talking about the 8th house. Shout out to y'all. Thank y'all for hitting those thumbs up. But no, thank you, ZoÉe, for giving that clarity on the 8th house. Okay, could Neptune dissolve the 8th house karma?
I think it depends the vision of karma you have, because let's say I don't believe that karma can be dissolved. I believe that we just have it, and that let's say having Neptune in the 8th house is more about Neptune is a planet of unconditional love, of wanting to kind of save and help others. So maybe it can be helping others who are suffering about the 8th house topics more than dissolving karma, because I consider Saturn to be more related to karma than the eighth house and Neptune.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And she's right on point. Karma is where we actually just did Saturn in our memberships, and we talked a good chunk about karma. And I'm telling you, she's right on point. Okay, cool. No, thank you for taking the time to answer that. All right, so we talked about the suffering not necessarily being the person of the eighth house itself. What house might be a place where somebody does have that suffering, if not the eighth?
The person can have suffering if planet in the eighth, but it depends if the planet, for example, is benefic or malefic, or if it gets some difficult aspects. So it will be too long to explain in this live, but
Sure.
if you can search yourself on the internet, planetary conditions is a more traditional thing, but you can try to know if the planet is in a difficult condition, then there's more chance that you have the suffering related to the eighth house.
Sure. I'm just gonna let them know right there. You can search yourself for planetary conditionings, and you'll get that green light. All right. I believe it worked into the 12th house now, huh?
I would like to add one more thing.
Oh, please do.
One example of a very simple planetary condition is to know if the planet is in domicile, in exile, in detriment, in fall. So, for example, if you have a planet in the eighth house which is in exile or in fall, the planet is already in a more difficult condition. So there is more chance that you get more difficult things related to the eighth house.
Yeah. On point. And as well, like she said, knowing whether the planet is naturally a benefit planet or a detriment planet can have a different impact as well, right? Okay. Where we at, ZoÉe?
Now let's talk about the 12th house.
Okay, cool. Everybody in the chat, if you're here, drop your 12th house planet, the zodiac sign it might be, degree if you know it, and then we're gonna let ZoÉe start speaking in the meanwhile. What you got for us?
In traditional astrology, this house is called the house of bad spirit. So we already get a sense of in traditional astrology they are very good or bad. There isn't much nuances. So this house is seen as more challenging. And the sixth house, which is in opposition, is called the house of bad fortune. So the sixth house is more about material thing, but the 12th house is more about intangible, unmaterial thing. The spirit is something we can't touch, we can't see. Also, another thing is that Saturn is in its joy in the 12th house. What does it mean? It's a traditional astrology concept. Is the planets will be associated to some houses in which they feel more comfortable, because Saturn's significations is related to the signification of the 12th house. So why Saturn is in its joy in the 12th house is because Saturn loves loneliness, darkness, love kind of challenges, the karma again. So when Saturn is in the 12th house, Saturn is feeling comfortable. Like, for example, Venus is in its joy in the 5th house. Venus love pleasure, good food, relationships, and the 5th house is also about pleasures and just enjoying life. So what other example we have? The sun is in joy in the 11th.
I was going to say, what's the joy of the 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house? Maybe.
There isn't joy for the 4th house and 8th house, because in traditional astrology they use only the 7 visible planets. So there is 12th house, not enough.
No, good to know. But please, what were you going to say before for the other houses, the other planets of joy?
For example, the sun is in its joy in the 9th house, because the sun likes wisdom, vitality, shining, and the ninth house is about, you know, those higher education, religion, philosophy. It's we can see a link between the signification of the house and of the planet. So
What
knowing
about
that
the
Saturn,
first and fifth? Just out of curious, for the sun, what about the first and the fifth house?
the first house is related to Mercury. So Mercury is in his joy in the first house, because Mercury is very intellectual about communication, so it's immediately related to ourself. It's our kind of image, how we communicate and think. And the moon is in its joy in the fourth house, no, the third house. So the moon is about emotions, relationship to others, but the third house is related to siblings. So there's a kind of childhood emotional thing related here.
Beautiful. All right, let's dip back. Let's dip back into the 12th. Let's dip back into the 12th. So we got the House of Bad Spirit. Thank you for that, by the way. You know, as we dip into the 12th, I see we got a bunch of 12th house placements and planets that people get in. So we'll get to these for some examples when the time comes. So what we got for the 12th? What else do you want to share?
This house also doesn't receive any traditional aspect to the ascendant, because it will be 30 degrees from the ascendant, and it will be a semi-sextile, which is not a traditional aspect. So it means doesn't receive the light from the ascendant. So lack of vitality, lack of light. It's dark. We don't see well. And again, like the 8 hours, we need to use our intuition, those kind of senses that are usually we don't use them in our daily life. It's more feelings.
So what about like okay, so like you, for example, you and I, this is a good example to give opposites. You have a sun and your rising sign, both in Taurus, right? Your sun's in the 12th, I believe, and then you have your rising in Taurus. So I'm sorry, for anybody that doesn't know, her sun was in Taurus and the 12th house, but then your rising is also in the 12th house. So what might that mean? And I have the same thing, by the way, vice versa, but mine's is in Pluto.
Usually, if like my sun is in the 12th house in Placidus, but if we switch to whole sign, it will be in the first house because it's in the same sign than the ascendant. So it's usually less challenging than if the sun is really one sign apart from the rising, so really the 12th house. Basically, it can mean a struggle between showing off in the public life, but also staying hidden. And this I can really feel it is I have this struggle to know when to go out of my loneliness, show in the public sphere. But at some time I feel like completely disappearing. So it's the kind of struggle with a sun in the 12th house.
So I have my Pluto in the 12th for Scorpio while I'm a Scorpio rising.
This can give a more spiritual vibe to your Scorpio rising. So maybe you will be naturally interested and put energy into this 12th house subject, which is digging into what's hidden, digging for a meaning of life, knowing how is the universe working, our energies, and maybe you're interested in everything related to escape. So maybe dreams, meditation, but also it can be drugs. And maybe you had some. It means that the field that bring you the most transformation is the 12 house subjects, because Pluto is our transformation. So maybe when you discover everything spiritual, it bring a transformation inside you. Maybe you completely change.
Yeah, you just hit a knob on the whole dream thing. I'm like, man, I have so many dreams. It's hard to journal them all. Like, it's like, I know, but with what you said, it's like, I know 1,000% that like, if and when I do, the transformations are like near immediate. They're almost like near immediate. Like if I can keep up with it. And then there's this other side of it where it's like, it's so tiring. Like it's like, oh my God, there's so
Yeah.
many dreams. Like it's every night. Like oh my God. Like especially now we're in Pisces season. I'm like, oh. And it's funny because today I just got in the mail a dream journal. So that's
Oh,
really ironic. I know my dream journal just came in the mail today. So I'm being able to, I did it to kind of help separate my dreams from my basic personal journal, so I can have that separate. You know what I mean? So no, that
yeah,
was
that's
actually really
really nice.
enlightening. No, thank you. That was actually really enlightening. Do you mind if we get into just a couple of examples? Maybe we'll take 2 to 3 of people who put their 12 houses in the chat.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I got a Mars in 12th house right here, conjunct their ascendant. I didn't see what their ascendant was, so that's on them. Miss K Martinez or Mr. K Martinez, either or. What might this mean? Mars conjunct the ascendant.
Mars in the 12th house conjunct the ascendant is very interesting because my brother get this aspect and I can see how it plays in real life. Usually it's people, they struggle to access their Mars. They have this kind of very impulsive personality, but they struggle to know where it came from. Maybe they struggle managing their anger. Usually it's people, they don't
It,
access where their anger and their
it is
motivation.
Libra, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt it. It is Libra, just so you had that in your background thought process.
Because it's in Libra, Mars is in exile, so it can be a bit more challenging. You struggle when to affirm yourself and when to not do it. And also, your anger is maybe challenging. Maybe you blame yourself for being angry because you don't know how to manage it. But this Mars in the 12th house can bring you a lot of motivation to learn about everything divine, anything spiritual, maybe about mental health, and maybe help people who are suffering from mental disease or handicapped people, for example.
Mm. Thank you. 12th house stellium in Scorpio. Do we have any planets or anything that you want to add in? Oh, it looks like Uranus in the 12th with a Scorpio stellium. I don't know what else is Scorpio for her, but we have a 12th house stellium. What about maybe we just go off Uranus in the 12th?
Yeah, Uranus in the 12 is very interesting because usually it's people that have a disturbed sleep because Uranus tends to bring, this kind of tension, those electricity. And I noticed that people with Uranus in the 12th, they tend to have insomnia. They tend to not have a quiet sleep because Uranus shakes everything.
No, I
So
could feel it.
maybe, yeah.
No. I'm listening.
Usually, it's people maybe they want to be innovative, revolutionary about the 12 hour subjects. Maybe they want to change the mental health system. Maybe they want to change the way we treat the handicapped people or the way we see spirituality in our society. But there's many interesting meanings about these planets in 12 hours.
So this is actually a dream coach, the Astro Guide. I actually worked with her for a little while, and she taught me how to interpret dreams at a different level. So
Whoa.
yeah. I do. I actually do know her. So I feel like what you said so far is smack on point from a practical standpoint, not even just theoretical. Hey, baby. My cat's like, what's going on, man?
So cute.
I know. Okay, cool. So I guess the last one, another Libra. A lot of Libras up in the building today. Hello. A Libra moon in the 12th house. This is the last one before we move forward. And Juno and Virgo.
Libra moon is the 12th house. You need a lot of loneliness to feel good, to recharge. Maybe because the moon is related to our mom, it can be a mom that was kind of absent, maybe unavailable emotionally. Maybe you need a lot of alone time. Maybe the way you express your creativity, your imagination is more when you're alone. But because the moon is in Libra, there's a kind of opposition because moon in Libra love to socialize, to be with others, but at the same time, you need this time alone because it's in the 12th house.
So to find the balance between the social life and the private life.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom. I got you. The Astro guy said, thank you for that interpretation. All right, ZoÉe. So far we heard with the 12th house we have in the traditional astrology, this is like where the bad spirit is considered. We talked about Saturn's joy, which I thought was really cool, interesting. Saturn being in the 12th. I've met a couple Saturn 12 houses. No traditional aspect to the ascendant itself, not receiving light from the ascendant. Um, did you talk about the sun kind of waking up?
I didn't talk about it.
Okay.
So if we look when the sun rises, it will go up to the ascendant and it will arrive in the 12th house. So it can show us that the 12th house is the moment the sun just woke up. So there isn't much light. It's the beginning. The energy is still kind of low, and it can show that it's an house that can lack vitality because we're still at the beginning of the day.
Mm, mm. I'm almost getting it's like I'm almost getting like the groggy person who might have all the blinds closed, but maybe they didn't even wake up from an alarm clock. They just woke up on their own and just kind of like when you wake up but the room is still so dark and there's no light in the room, so it makes it that much harder to kind of wake on a natural cadence. It's like, okay, look, I got my 8 hours of sleep, but everything is, I'm just trying to think about myself, but everything is just still so dark that I might as well just kind of lay here for a little bit longer. And then a little bit
Yeah,
longer turns into like an hour.
yeah, I like your example. It's really how it feels like we need this light of the sun to help us wake up. In a
Uh-huh.
physical perspective, we should actually get this light from the sun as fast as possible. But when we wake up and it's still dark, our vitality seems lower.
So yeah, I'm almost wondering like if this person might need to sleep or have a home where they get the sunrise versus the sun being on the opposite side of its shadow, where that might now make that person, if they're struggling to wake up, they might need to have a room that actually faces the sunlight and kind of keep the blinds half cracked. Like if I think about myself, even last night, like during the whole winter solstice, during Capricorn season, all that, like I closed my blinds like more and more and more to the point where it was just like, look, this is rest season. But I'm noticing as we're getting close to this spring equinox and Aries season is coming back, I'm like, I'm putting the blinds higher and higher as I sleep. I'm like, look, I'm not gonna put it all the way down because I'm realizing it's a little bit, I'm a little groggier. Like it's a little harder for me to wake up and want to start stretching and stuff. So that's really interesting. Okay, cool. So what about the Cadent house? What's that about?
Uh, in traditional astrology, we say that all the Cadent house, so the 12, the third house, the sixth house, and the ninth house, are kind of low in energy because all those angular houses is the strong energy point, but the one before, they they don't have this energy because they're just before the moment the energy arrive. So it can be, usually those houses tends to be less energetic. If we can associate them with the mutable signs, unless the cardinal signs, which can be associated with the angular houses, the mutable signs are more trying to adapt, getting ready for the next thing. Whether
Mm-hmm.
the cardinal signs have this impulsion to start, initiate. So it gives it a sense that the 12th house is about getting ready for the next step. And it's why it's also related to death in some ways. I will talk about
Mm.
it very soon.
Super interesting. You made me wonder, like, would the next step to the 12th house be the first house? And the next step to the third house be the fourth house, where they initiate that cardinal energy?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. And so now I'm also curious on the second part, where like if we went a step backwards from the Cadent houses, would the 11th house, moving from its fixed energy, is that's what we're quite. What is the houses called when you talk the fixed houses? We have angular for the cardinals, Cadent for the mutables. What's the fixed?
The fixed houses are called the succedent houses.
I don't even know how to spell that.
Uh, It's like succeed,
Okay.
succeedant. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Nope, I've
they
seen that.
are just after, so they succeed. Then yeah, exactly.
So if we're going from a succeedant to a cadent house, what does that transition look like?
Um. So you mean like, for example, if you go from the second house to the first house?
Yes.
Actually, there isn't much transition because it's going the other way. I don't know if you know what I mean, but
No, I meant from, wait, you said from the second to the first. What if it was more like from like the 11th to the 12th? Because we had the example of
oh,
like going from the 12th house to the first house. What would it be
okay, I
like from
see.
the 11th house to the 12th house?
The 11 is very fixed if we take what I said before, because in modern astrology we associate with the Aquarius sign. So we're in this fixed, comfortable energy, stable, and then we switch to being mutable, being ready for what's next. So we
Mm,
kind of break those kind of structure that make us stable. We
mm,
get ready for anything and we're more adaptable.
cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So as we shift and we move on to some of the key words of the 12th house, what do we have?
Uh, I think that's it. We can start with the keywords. So the first thing is that people often forget, but the 12th house is about anything far away. So being in foreign places, being in exile, being not here, also being absent. Also anything, any places that is far away. So hospitals, jails, monastery, those places of isolation. But it can also be escape, because when we go far away, sometimes it can be to escape.
Mm,
And escape can be made through drugs, dreams, can be addictions also, alcohol, and many other ways.
sex,
Yeah, any
1000%.
addiction.
Mm,
But the eighth house is also related to addictions. But I would say the 12th house is addictions in a way to, you just want to escape this world. But the eighth house is because you have a trauma, you feel bad inside yourself, and then you have an addiction to kind of forget this thing. So it's always in a different way.
yeah, one of the ways I've heard somebody explain addiction before, and I typed it in a short frame. And addiction is anything we can't stop, anything we can't stop. And so,
Yeah.
that can be food. If you can't stop eating, literally, um, it could be anything. It can be exercise, right? You can be addicted to exercise. Okay, exercise is supposed to be healthy, great, but you can be addicted to it, literally. Um, and I've seen this. And again, a lot of times when we're over exercising, what's happening? We're trying to escape something else.
Yeah.
So just be mindful that like this can be masked as something healthy, but still a different form of escape, unique to you.
Yeah, very true.
So okay, these are some of the key words. Um, Foreign places is one of the things I think that is often skipped. I think a lot of people only look at like Sagittarius as the far
Yeah.
away, traveler, but it's like Pisces are right in that same boat, or 12th house energy as well.
Yeah, very true. Like people with many planets in the 12th house, usually they will live far away from their homeland.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, I have Mercury in the Sun in 12th house, and I'm living in Malaysia, but I come from France and Switzerland, so I'm really far away. And yeah, initially I go far away because I just want to escape this life I had in those countries before. I just wanted
Mm,
to start something new and feel like in another world.
beautiful. Do you like Malaysia?
Yeah, I love it.
Are
I
you are
like
you in KL?
near from KL. I don't like the city, so I'm not living in KL itself.
Not with a sun in the 12th house.
What
Not
did you say?
now I said not with Taurus in the 12th house.
Yeah. Uh, Actually, I my 12th house is very big in Placidus. There is like Pisces, Aries, and Taurus, but it's more in Aries.
So there's a lot of sensitivity. When you're in the cities now, there's a lot of sensitive energy, and the cities can be very like, yeah, I feel that. I feel
It's too
that
much.
1,000%. It's way too much. I get it. I've always been like a second to third city type of person. Like
Oh,
when I lived in Thailand, I was like, Bangkok was not the it, but Chiang Mai, I loved Chiang Mai. Have you been by chance?
no, never. But I wish I can go.
It's not that far from you. Take the trip. It's not that
Yeah,
far,
I
and
will one day.
I know that's like a $50 flight, so it's not that hard to get in there. Okay, cool. So, when we talk in terms of spirituality, what do we have in the 12th house?
The 12th house is associated to spirituality is a more modern meaning because we can relate it to Pisces. So anything related to sacrifice, devotion, so the divine, the universe, what's around us, but also illusions and compassion. So all the values, for example, we find in Buddhism to have compassion for others, how the universe works is very much related to the 12th house.
Yeah, this is major. Separate from astrology itself, when we talk spirituality in the modern day, do you feel like sharing anything about how you see spirituality forming in more modern times? Is there anything you might want to contribute?
There's a lot to say, but I see that the word in the past was more oriented towards religions, and now
Mm-hmm.
I see that it's working with trends. So now we're in this kind of new age movement. So people uh, find spirituality more exciting than religion. So there is more awareness about this. But my personal opinion is that religion and spirituality is the same shit. I don't want to say it's shitty, but uh, basically, as long as you believe you're lower than something, is the same thing. Like religions
Mm.
are following some rules. Spirituality doesn't have much rules, but it's always like listen to what's higher than you. And me, I believe we need to seek inside ourselves our power because I believe we have this strong power inside us. I don't believe we are lower than anything, than
Mm.
any god. But that's my personal opinion, of course.
No, it's valid. I mean, like I said before, I'm not even gonna throw any extra business up, but you're the generation. You're the generation. At the end of the day, you're the ones. The way I see it, tearing it down. Rewriting the script, you know, universifying the entire everything that has already existed, and like blazing that path from Pluto and Scorpio. Everything they discovered, you're the ones making the change. So like the cadent house is almost how you said it. Like you're that change from what was stuck, right? In
Yeah,
Scorpio, what was stuck, and then with the Sag vision forward, where we're gonna take that new push into Capricorn, right? So
yeah.
cool. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Like you said, I got my Pluto in the 12th house on the ascendant, so it's like I love I love these themes. 12th house is my jam. So when we get into like devotion and the divine and being compassionate, how do you elaborate in the spirituality aspect?
Um, Being devoted to something, to a god or prayer is a kind of devotion. Compassion is also in some instance is also a kind of devotion, like
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be compassionate, accepting. So everything is related to this. It's also related to karma. We want to be compassionate to clear our karma, or we want to sacrifice, like for example, the monks will sacrifice any pleasure to clear the
Mm.
karma. So it's why it's related to
You
spirituality.
read my mind. So that would that be like a Leo 12th house? What would you say about a Leo 12th house when it comes to forms of devotion?
That's very interesting. I think Leo in the 12th house. Uh, it's not into devotion so much. Maybe Leo the 12th house want to shine into spirituality. Maybe a spiritual master. Maybe the person can inspire others into spirituality.
Mm. I understand. I understand. I'm trying to think. I actually met I had a Leo 12th house sun before, and that just kind of like sparked a little bit of interest. What would you say about a Leo 12th house sun?
I have seen a chart of a spiritual master that has a big Leo stellium, and I'm thinking that as Leo sun in the 12th house is like as a big chance to become a spiritual figure, like to give some teachings, maybe lead people in some kind of path, some kind of ways. It's like shining the light of the sun of Leo in this 12th house, which is kind of mysterious and dark. So this person can be confident in this field, can feel like, it's my zone.
It's
I
my
feel
calling.
like, yeah.
No, I hear that. I hear that. I hear that. This person that I remember meeting was a dancer, a dancer,
Oh yeah.
a dancer, an actor. And when I look at it, you know, she had when she let it out, and that was the key, because she a lot of ways she shied away from her full artistic expression, personal opinion. But years later, I said a lot of the things you had said, and years later, I started seeing through the art forms, through her dance and art forms, she began to inspire a sense of spirit, like through the dance itself. Like I said, you know, like a connection to spirit that you can just, even through a video, even if you're just looking at Instagram, you're watching the dance and you're seeing the creativity of the choreography, and you're like feeling connected. You know, you're just watching, your spirit just feels lifted, and there's no real words. So that's the best Leo in a talk that I have in the moment, where like I'm watching this and I'm like, I'm feeling inspired. You know, I'm feeling like, wow, like this is uplifting. This is what I want to see for content. There's nothing spoken. There's no caption necessary. It's just the dance itself lifting me up. So okay, cool.
Yeah, the 12th house is also related to anything artistic. I will talk about it later.
Beautiful. Bring us to what's next. What you got? 12th house.
We have the mental health. So any mental disease, our unconscious also, our mind, worries, concern, but also feeling unsettled and having insomnia is related to the 12th house. So it's why people with planet in the 12th house that is in a very difficult condition, sometimes they can have mental disease. But of course, don't start to panic if you have planet in the 12th house. It doesn't mean you will have. Or maybe sometimes there are more awareness about those mental health subjects, or they are here to bring awareness about that.
I had somebody actually send me a text. They were like, they can't comment in the chat for whatever reason, and they sent me a text backdoor, and they were saying this was actually a while ago now, but they talk about 12th house, 8th house, how they might access intuition, and apparently this gentleman has these houses, and he said clear cognizance is one of the main things. He said we can access the thoughts and the minds of others intuitively, and can kind of intellectualize why they're feeling the emotions that they're feeling, or intellectualize why our gut is telling us to do something or not to do something.
Yes, I agree. Especially the 12th house can make us very, very intuitive because it's like we're connected to anyone. We're connected to the universe. Literally, it's like we feel everything around us. The 8th house also, but it's more in a way that we are good at, like the Scorpio traits, analyzing the emotion behind what people say. We are kind of good in psychology, so both can make us very intuitive, but always in a different way.
Definitely. No, I agree. And so as we dip into the mental health, um, separate from the astrology, how do you see mental health transforming, or even in a sense, like coming to an end? Like if that 12th house is that end step, right? That last fogginess before we kind of step back into this next angular house. How do you see mental health, just dissolving or shifting in some capacity in the world?
Uh, so you mean my vision about how is it going recently in the world?
So recently, but even futuristically, even if like we're here, but then where are we going to? Like, how do you see it completely
I see that there is more and more
changing?
awareness
Mm-hmm.
about mental health. Of course, we are arriving at a time that I feel like we have much more challenging energies in the world because of many things happening. It can be pandemics, disasters, so people have more struggle mentally.
Mm.
But at the same time, because of social media, I think there's more awareness about the subjects, and I find interesting that people, compared to the past, they start to get interested about what's inside them, what they
Mm.
feel,
Mm.
and I think I don't know how it will go in the future, but I see that the world will become maybe more futuristic, more intellectual, and maybe it will completely change. Maybe we won't even feel emotion. I don't know how will be the word, but I see how AI evolved that fast. I'm
Mm.
thinking that we are having a world that is completely different in like 50 years.
1,000%. 1,000%. No, that's cool. I love hearing personal takes. Um, okay, cool. Is escape what we're looking at for the 12th house?
Y- yes,
Okay.
the 12 hours is related to escape. So any way of escaping, like I said before, it can be traveling very far, but here I would talk more about drugs,
Mm.
dreams, addiction, alcohol, any ways to feel like you're not here, you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it can lead to very, very strong addictions. It can be challenging. Like I see many people with planet in the 12th house, they have addiction with alcohol because it makes them have illusions. They see things differently, and usually it's people that is tired of this world, and I can understand. I think we all go through this time at some point in our life.
Mm. 1,000%. I think everybody gets tired. Everybody get tired once in a while. I swear to God. I see we have another Taurus 12th house sun in here, so that's interesting, Miss J Lo. And it's really ironic because I'm pretty sure you're both manifesting generators as well, which is even another interesting trait. I love collecting data and seeing how things kind of compare and contrast in their own way. So, um, okay, cool. So when we look at escape. Do you feel like there's ever a good way to escape or a good means for escape? I feel like escape always has like a negative connotation. Is there a positive um, reason for escape, or even with the 12th house placements, how might certain signs positively escape?
For me, there isn't good or bad things. I have a vision of life that is very special, let's say, but I can understand that people want to escape. And I don't think anything is good or bad. I think we get what we should get in this life, and that it's kind of planned.
Mm.
Uh, but as long as it's not making us in a bad earth, I think it's not a bad thing. Like if it has consequence on our health and in our body, I think better avoid. But maybe sometimes it's literally our destiny to literally become addicted and die from this addiction. So sometimes it's difficult to know. But it's why we need to stay conscious of what we do, because sometimes we just don't realize. Most people, they think things happen to them, but it's just they're not conscious of what emotion they have,
Mm.
and they let the sun run in their mind. And it's like, I have this feeling that in the world, most people, they are driven by something. Like, I know it can be kind of scary, but sometimes when you keep overthinking in your head, I think it's not normal. Because sometimes there is no problem; it's just in your head.
Yeah, and 12th house is part of those mental illnesses. Mental, it could be
Yeah.
part schizophrenia, right? Multiple personality disorders. Um, but kind of like to what you said before, 12th house is karma, right? So it's like it can also just be as simple as this is what you karmically signed up for. Like you needed, like she said, you might have needed to have this illness and actually go through this death. You might have occurred some karma, past life,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you're here to
Sometimes it's
just
like that.
pay your dues. You know what I mean? It's like I think what's important is like remember like you chose your chart, right? Like you chose your chart. So when you step into it and fully embody those reasons why, things clarify.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Isolation. What is it? Isolation is the 12th house. How do we elaborate in this?
To us is the place we end up being alone, because usually it's the end of our life. So usually the old people, they are alone at their home, or their partner is already dead. So it's everything related to solitude, withdrawal, and endings. So it's this kind of time in our life. You're like, okay, I have lived my life. Now is the end. Now I start to need to look for something else. What's after? So it's a kind of introspection time.
Yeah, that's my fault. I left my windows open, and so I was like, "Let me close this." It's nighttime. I got flies flying up in here. I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm coming back. I'm coming back." I was like, no, no, no. I had to, because I got this is the one light on. I'm like in the dark, and I got one light, and it's right where I'm at, and they're like, they're just coming around me. I'm like, no, 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 we gotta go. All right, cool. So, most definitely, I treat my soul today. Ooh, I like that. I like that. P disappears. Shazam! So let's see what Raina has going on right here. I have to escape in the sense to love me. The Aries in the 12th house, even within Mars and Jupiter and Aries, Chiron, there my ego is bruised. I protected today. Well done. Well done. Neptunian vibes. All right. So we're getting close, ladies and gentlemen, um, to this synastry chart. We're gonna look at these 1-2 charts. I'm almost thinking that we might have to part two that, Zoe. It's up to
Uh,
you. It's up to you what you feel.
I think I will just finish quickly with the signification of the 12, and then we can switch to part two.
Okay. Okay.
So there's also all the marginalized groups within society. So the people that are handicapped, mentally or physically, for example, or people that have a special situation in our society that is often isolated. So adding planets in the 12th house can indicate that we work with those kind of people. Also, there is everything hidden, like the 8th house. So the hidden enemies, very common meaning about the 12th house. All the secrets, everything about energies, about intuitive things can show that we have intuitive talents. The way we sense energies, and the way we are energetically aware. Then I will talk about signification that usually people forget about it. The 12th house is a bit weird, but it's related to large animals.
Hmm.
So the quadrupeds, the four-footed creatures like the horses, the elephants, etc. So sometimes people with planet in the 12th house can work with those creatures, work in a zoo with them, or just love those animals.
Mm.
Like the sixth house is the pets, the smaller animals, but then the 12th house, which is in opposition, is the bigger ones.
That makes total sense when you consider Jupiter being the traditional rule of Pisces, and
Yeah.
Jupiter being expansive, right? But Pisces opposite of Virgo, so now we got the base pets, and then you got the big pets. I've never actually knew that. That's the first time I've heard that, but it just makes so much intuitive sense that I'm like, yep, yep. That's cool. You're bringing in the wow factors. I told ZoÉe, I was like, look, bring in the wow factors, bring the stuff we've never heard before, and that is definitely one of them wow factors right there. So thank you, I appreciate it. We always hear about past lives in the 12th house. Can you elaborate?
The 12th house is related to our most recent past life. So the 12th house is the end, and then the first house is beginning of life.
Mm.
So what come before the beginning of this life is our most recent past life. So if you look at the planet you have in the 12th house, you can know the climate of your past life. Like for example, if you have Mercury in the 12th house, maybe your
Mm.
past life was related to being highly intellectual, communication, being a speaker about something. Maybe you
Mm.
were even a scientist or a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get that kind of sense of how
I like
was our most recent past life.
I like the journalist example actually a lot. I really enjoy that. Because you could think like this person might be super inquisitive and like want to question certain authority figures or certain just paradigms in general. When you think of journalists like wanting to get the truth to the truth of things, to the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, last thing for the meanings that we often forget is all the creative arts. Like I said before, painting can be cinema, but music especially. So, singing or playing an instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you have played your 12th house, usually you're quite creative and you love expressing your emotion into something artistic.
Mm. I kind of gave that example earlier. We got the 12th house sun in Leo saying with the dance.
Oh
What's
yeah, the
your 12th
dancing.
house? What's your 12th house art? And your Taurus in the 12th, and Taurus is hella artistic. What's your 12th house art?
Actually, I have Aries in my 12th house.
Mm-hmm. Ah.
Uh, but let's say I get my creativity more because I have a Taurus rising, so Venus is my chart ruler. So I'm naturally Venusian. So, but my Venus is in Gemini. So let's say I have my creativity, but it's in a way very Gemini.
Mm. I understand. So it's versatile. It can it,
Yeah,
it probably
exactly.
it probably continuously changes, huh?
Yeah, I change style all the time, and it's like I don't have any preference. I like the fact to experience different things. Like
Sure.
sometimes I will have my time I want to wear full black, and then I will have my time I want to wear purple, uh, blue, green. That's very Gemini.
Yeah. No, I hear you. For me, it's like a lot of times I've realized like Gemini being the hands, it's like cutting my own hair and just doing different designs and just
Oh,
playing with it too, right? Like I never know what's gonna happen. Every once in a while, like, and a lot of times it'll start from what appears to be a mistake when I'm like cutting my hair, and then from that mistake, I'll just keep playing and then draw something new. And I
wow.
realized that, yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, it kind of has this mentality of like there really are no mistakes. Like, art is something to play with. At least the way I feel, it's like art is something to play
Hmm.
with. Art is something to be curious about, and just allow it kind of like that neutrality of Gemini, right? The neutrality of Mercury, I mean, where
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong. It's just like, look, this is just an experimentation. I'm just curious. I'm just gathering information, realizing what kind of arts I like, what kind of cuts I like, what kind I don't like, and really not attaching to the process. Beautiful.
I think that's it for the 12th house. We can start with the charts.
We got the chart. Show me which one is the first chart that you want to talk about for the synastry. Is this the first one?
Yeah, it's the first one.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can make
So I
this
took
bigger.
this chart because we can see there is Venus in the 4th house. Then there is the Moon and Mars in the 8th house. So this chart will be focusing on those two houses. So this person is a woman, and she has Venus in the 4th house, and I know her very well. She put a lot of importance into her family. So Venus is what we love, and in the 4th house is the family. So for her, family is something extremely important, like in her hurts that touch her emotion. So she will literally do her best for her family. And she's also a woman that needs a lot of privacy and to feel safe. Because when we have Venus in the 4th house, we need this intimacy, this introspection time. It's like, let's say the time she feels the best is midnight, because the 4th house is the midnight time. So which is the time we are alone at home, maybe alone in our room. And she's a woman, she won't want to share anything to others. She's very private. She will even get mad when talking about the private life. She doesn't want. She really put a lot of importance into protecting her private life.
Do you think that squaring to the 7th house might be part of why she won't share with others?
I'm not sure, because it depends the chart. Like if we take whole sign houses, yeah, it will square with the 7th house, but it depends. There's few perspectives. Like the square in modern astrology is seen as challenging, but in traditional it's seen as activating. So let's say that the 4th house activate the 7th and the 7th activate the 4th. So like the family will also activate later what kind of partner we feel attracted by, and what kind of relationship we have, and if we want to make a family or not.
But what about this one going to Uranus and Pluto? So this Venus going to Uranus and Pluto.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, this can show some struggles about self-confidence, because Venus is about our self-confidence, about also a sister. So this person, she has a sister that she struggled to get along well. Like they have go through a lot of trauma together in their family. So the square can show that Pluto and Uranus is bringing trauma, big change, kind of shaking things. And Venus in her 4th house is her self-confidence, but also her sister. So it can show some struggles about those subjects. And this woman struggle a lot with her self-confidence since she's young.
No, I see.
But if you want to talk about the more positive side, it's a woman that she really has a love of her home. Like she loves staying at home. She loves buying beautiful furniture, making her home a comfortable and beautiful space. So it's those kind of things that a Venus in the 4th house can like. So I think we can switch to the Mars and Moon in the 8th.
This is this chart?
No, it's still the one before.
Oh, okay.
This is still the same person, and because the Moon is in the 8th, it can show that this person has very hidden emotions. Like her emotions are difficult to access. She feel like it's very subconscious. It's full of subconscious things that she can't control, and sometimes she will struggle to express her emotion. But the Moon is also related to the mom, and this person has had a lot of struggle with her mom. Like literally, her mom was absent was emotionally unavailable. She
Mhm.
has like love from her mom, and yeah, it's what a moon in the eighth house can look like is that having a mother that is absent, and because our mother shape our emotions later, it can make our emotion also kind of hidden, kind of unavailable. Another interesting thing, this person was before addicted to drugs at a very strong point. Like she told me she tried literally everything except like one kind of drug. So we can really see the side of the eighth house that is related to addictions. But this person, because she has also Mars in the eighth house, had this motivation to dig inside herself, dig inside her trauma, her addiction, and she go through it. She stopped drugs by herself, not even need any therapy.
Mm.
So she has a very strong will.
What do you think contributed to the strong will to stop alone?
What did you say?
No, I was saying, what do you think contributed to the strong will for her to be able to stop alone?
Oh, this woman is very like independent and quite stubborn. Like she has Mercury in Aries, Saturn in Aries. So, and also the Sun in Taurus can be quite stubborn. So she wants to do things by herself. Like she feel like
Mm.
only yourself can do things well, and that only yourself can change things.
Mm.
She's a quite strong woman, and we can see she has a lot of squares and oppositions. This is not necessarily bad
No.
because it can make the person very dynamic, active, and usually people with a lot of like easy aspect, trine, and the sextile can be more lazy than someone which has a lot of square and oppositions. So I think this contribute to the fact she wanted to go out of it alone.
Mm.
Also, the planet in the eighth house, it can make the person very interested in psychology. And this person has begun some psychology studies that she stopped later for some reason, but she has always been very interested in understanding human behaviors, like the trauma and what happened in the subconscious. And also, this person loves to help people. Like in her work, she talk with parents of children that are having struggles with addictions, with sometimes mental health. So with the moon in this house, it's really like she wants to nurture them, to understand them, and to help them. So it's a beautiful example of how we can work with those eight house planets. So this person has suffered from the eight house subject, but also work with it.
Mm.
And she has got a lot of transformation in her life because she has gone through a lot of tough events that she didn't choose, like with her mom or with her husband, and I will talk about it later. And I think that's it. Do you have any things you want to add?
Hmm. No, I just I can see, when you have moon, is her moon opposite Saturn? No, it's actually making, yeah, that's 5 degree orb. So like I could see how just these conflicts really presented like her gifts, like just hearing from what you're saying and seeing attention based energies with some of these aspects, how well it actually like informed her of, by learning her own psychology, having to go through it herself, it became a resource for her to help so many others.
Yeah, like Saturn is this kind of planet that, is challenging, want to do things alone. And when it's in opposition to the moon, she has this time, she's in a kind of difficult sadness, depression, wanting to be alone, but at the same time she has this time she wants to be nurtured. So she has found this kind of balance. But Saturn in opposition to the moon really shows struggles with the mom, especially that she has a night chart. So the most malefic planet is Saturn. So it really shows the struggles.
Right. And we talked about that earlier. Wow. I'm excited to see how this matches up when we do the synastry.
Yeah.
You want me to hit the next chart?
Yeah, next chart.
Okay. Got a Virgo Sun, Leo Moon, Libra Mercury, Leo Venus. This is where we getting. This is where it gets interesting. Okay. Sag and Mars. All right. I'm curious. I'm curious to see what this is looking like. We got one strong Earth from what I'm seeing, and then the air and fire take over, and then we go back into the Earth and Saturn. But okay. Sorry, I was just like checking it in. All right, what we got?
Right.
What we got?
So here we'll focus on the 8th and 12th house. We have Saturn in the 8th house. So Saturn, a very challenging planet, and what happened to this person is a man, is the husband of the woman I took before. This guy had a lot of issues with the 8th house subject, which is money of others. He has struggled so many years with debt, needing to pay for things like big amount of money. He needed to pay that for a big part of his life. It was very long, and Saturn is a very slow planet, and Taurus is extremely slow also. And we can really see with that it was a very slow process. That didn't get paid very fast. He needed like 10-20 years. And with Saturn in the 8th house, it can be also some struggles with authority figures, because Saturn is like the sun. We can both relate them to the father. And this man had a lot of struggles with his dad. Like his dad divorced with his mom when he was 6 years old, and he didn't really get the education of his dad. He didn't get a role model. A role model to follow, because his dad was absent. And then later, it made him struggle with authority figures and listening. And also, having Saturn in the 8th house can be blockage and frustrations related to unmaterial life. So energies, the invisible, what's after death. And as long as I remember, this person has always been interested in reading books to try to understand the people that had a near-death experience. He wants to understand that in a rational way. But at the same time, he has this fear. I can really see he's very scared of death, like many people, but it's in a very special way. It's a thing that takes place in his daily life. Every time it's his birthday, he will feel bad about the fact he get 1 year older and 1 year closer to death. So it's not necessarily a negative person, but he has these fears related to the 8th house death and deadly illnesses.
Does that person still have fears of death? Like, what year was this person? What year is this person born? 69. Does this person still have these same fears?
Yes.
Wow. So to Taurus, showing how slow Taurus can really be when you put it in that disciplined, formed planet of Saturn. Yeah. So how with this person, how does that trining out of curiosity work? so Saturn and the Sun being fatherly influences, but both in these unseen houses. How does the trine play out to Virgo Sun?
This person is working with handicapped people, and this I think can quite of help him dig into the subject in a like the sun will bring light to Saturn to this deep subject, and maybe it can help him face that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's someone maybe is able to be consistent, to be serious, be mature. Maybe it's someone that needed to become mature earlier in life, so the trend can play like that.
I understand. What about this Sun squaring the Mars? The Sun in Virgo versus this Mars and Sag.
Before, I just want to add something I forgot to
Okay.
mention. One of the meaning of Saturn I didn't mention is fierce. So if you look at the placement of your Saturn, you can know your fears, what fears you have, like depending the house and the sign. So, for example, in this chart is fear of death in the eighth house. But if you have Saturn, I don't know, maybe let's say in the ninth house, it can be fear of travel, fear of going far, fear of religion. So Saturn is really what we fear.
I understand.
So what was your question before?
With this male, his Sun in Virgo squaring this masculine energy of Sagittarius and Mars.
Oh.
How did that play out?
He's a person that I kind of struggle with his brother, because Mars can be about a brother, but it can also be about violence. And this person struggled to keep all this anger and violence inside him. He had a lot of tension about this. And he had also a lot of tension with his older brother. So I would say that every planet is related to a member of the family, and here is related to the older brother. But Mercury can also be related to siblings, but generally it will be a younger sibling. Yeah. And Venus will be a sister.
I see. Any highlights you want to make before you move to the Synastry?
Yes. For the planet in the 12th house, we have Sun, Pluto, and Uranus. And he's a person that, had an absent father. Here again, the Sun is our father, and in the 12th house, it can just explain that the father is absent, far away. And this person also works with handicapped people, mentally and physically handicapped. So he faces that in his daily life, and he's here to shine some light in this area. And this person had many depression and needed to take medicine for it. So we also have this part of he helped people struggling, but he's also struggling himself. And people with planetary 12 hours will often need to escape. And this person love video games, but you always say, "Oh, it's my only escape and funny time of the day." He loves playing video games because for him, it's a way just to go out.
Sure.
And again, an addiction.
No, it makes total sense. And then games, you think that squaring to the Sun, games can be a part of that third house right there with Sagittarius?
I think yes, it can be a way to release the anger and kind of
And the fire,
violence.
right?
Yeah, the fire.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Huh. And there's a Libra ascendant on top of that. Okay. Huh.
I think we can move to the Synastry chart.
So we're going to move into where the woman that you mentioned earlier and the male that we just went through are now overlapping each other?
So there's many interesting to see. We can see the Mercury and Jupiter of the chart number 2, so the man, in the charts of the woman 8th house. So what does it mean?
Okay, for the people looking at this, can we help them understand who's the red ring and who's the blue ring?
The blue one is the woman and the red is the man.
Okay. So for everyone watching, the blue ring on the inside, if we were to look, for example, starting at the ascendant, we're now going second house. So you see ascendant is kind of part of the first house, second house part of what is that? Saturn, Mercury, the sun, and it goes around and you can see that. And then for the male who are overlapping is this red ring. So I just want y'all to understand, in case nobody's ever seen a synastry chart, so y'all can understand how the houses are in the ring of the color itself. Does that make sense? Did I say that in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay, cool. If it doesn't make sense for anybody in the chat, say something and we'll clarify. Just ask your question. So, okay, we're looking at this synastry chart. The female is blue and the male is red.
Yes. So one thing we can see is that the Mercury and Jupiter of the male is in the 8th house of the woman and on close to her moon and her Mars. So this will really, it means the male will provoke some transformation on the woman. It will trigger the 8th house themes. So this man bring a lot of transformation to this woman through their relationships. It can also be a kind of obsession between them. Like I told you before, the 8th house can be people we're obsessed with, can't let go of each other no matter what. It's often people that no matter what kind of difficult things they go through in their relationship, they will still be together no matter what. It's like they are meant to stay together no matter the suffering. So what happened in this relationship is that the man cheated on the woman many times. And this made the woman, having a very painful time, but she transformed from that. And it brings a kind of rebirth inside of her that, she need to let go of this attachment. Is often, the 8th house is often very painful things that teach us to just, let go. Like the Taurus is more, I keep my possession, I'm attached to, but the 8th house and Scorpio is about detachment. And another thing we can notice is that the second chart, so the chart of the man, his sun is conjunct the woman's Pluto. So here we can immediately see that the guy's light of his sun shine on the trauma of the woman. So this guy, what happened is that he bring out many trauma inside his wife. He shined into those dark stuff that the woman had keep inside herself, and then she needed to face those things. And what happened is that his wife then started to do psychological work on herself. She went to a psychiatrist to try to dig what happened in her childhood to finally solve those problems. So that's a beautiful example of how the sun conjunct someone's Pluto can help digging into those Pluto trauma.
I'm curious. I have a question. Are these two people together, or did they date and then they split?
They're still together for like more than 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's pretty impressive. That's really interesting. So if you were to interpret this, but from this synastry of the two, what do you think kept them together?
From what I see, it's it's something that is out of their control. Honestly, it's like almost fated. I believe every relationship we have in this life is already arranged, but the woman wanted to break up many times, but she was just not able. Like, she had the fear to be alone, the fear to let go of her husband, and she said that she still loved him no matter what. And the man, even if he cheated on his wife many times, he still loved his wife so much. So it's really something completely unconscious.
Is there a specific aspect that you think that indicates those last statements?
There's many aspect, like there's many harmonious aspect between them. Like, his ascendant Libra, she's ascendant Aquarius, both earth signs. That's a trine. She's a Taurus sun, is a Virgo sun, also a trine. So this bring harmony, but also there's some squares that bring some dynamism. So it's a mix of all of this that make the relationship last in the time. But later, we talk that there is the Saturn of the man conjunct the North Node of the woman, and everything related to North Node is arranged, is fated, because North Node is about karma. So to talk about that, the Sun and the North Node of the woman are in the eighth house of the man and conjunct Saturn. So it's something very, very, very karmic, very also challenging. So what happened is that this woman helped her husband to pay the debt he has. No matter the time it took, she really helped him to pay everything, and also to deal with many money problems. So we can see here a North Node on his Saturn, like the Saturn is his struggles, and her North Node is like she's arranged for this man's life to come to help him.
With this, wow, that's super dope. Nice connection.
And what happened is that she also encouraged her husband to go to see a psychiatrist to deal with his trauma related to his dad. And like we can see, her Sun is almost conjunct is Saturn. So she will shine on those issues related to Saturn of the man that he had with his dad and authority figures. And because it's in the eighth house, she shine on the eighth house of her husband and bring some light into everything that he wanted to hide.
Right.
I think
her son was on the second house, so she understood the money. Like she was more conscious about financial institutions and in the banking system, so she was able to shine on his Saturn.
Yeah, exactly. She's a woman that is very. She had a lot of struggles with money, but now she's very, want to be stable, playing it safe.
Sure. Wow, interesting. That's pretty cool.
I think we can switch to the third part.
Another chart?
The third part of the life, because the chart is finished.
Okay. Okay. What degrees if we ignore those houses?
Yes.
So take this chart down.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I would say that if we don't dig into darkness, we will never find the light. Because this darkness can be scary, the 8, 12, and 4th house. But it's where is our emotion and our potential to improve, to evolve. And at some point in our life, we'll need to dig inside those subjects. So ignoring those houses, it will be like ignoring our mental health, our trauma, our emotional life, and that's just not possible. We can't live without an awareness about the subject. And a risk is that if we ignore all the subject, we will create even more trauma, because if we're not even conscious of what's inside us, then it will just keep accumulating. And yeah, basically, if we ignore those houses, we will never heal our trauma. And the fourth house can be related to generational trauma, family trauma. So it's also very interesting to dig into this house and also dig into the past and our childhood, because usually it comes from our childhood. And now for each house, I will say more specifically what danger there is to ignore those houses. So the fourth house, if we ignore it, there's a risk to stay too dependent of the family patterns and of the past, because the fourth house is the past.
Yeah.
So we'll keep sticking to it, we will continue without even noticing. But there's one moment we need to take some distance from that.
That makes sense. We got taking a distance will make the shift.
Yeah, that's exactly that. And also seeking to know our fourth house is seeking to know ourselves, because it's where we come from. So if we don't know ourselves, how can we start to develop? How can we start a self-development process? We can't. And what can happen also is that we can dissociate ourselves from our emotion, our inner world, and this can make anxiety and even phobia. So if we completely ignore our emotion, what we feel, it can be dangerous. I believe we accumulate emotion. If we don't let it go, one day it will just become so big that we can have anxiety and a very tough time. And also, if we ignore the fourth house, it's also ignoring our creativity and our imagination. Because I always say that the creativity comes from the soul, and the soul is very, very emotional. If we ignore it, we can't get our creativity. And also something that most astrologers forgot is that the fourth house is also related to relationships. And we won't be able to build that intimate relationship with someone if we ignore the fourth house, because it's based on our family story or on our inner child.
That's a really good point.
Now for the eighth house. If we ignore it, we will repress our drives and desires, because the eighth house is everything like our drives and things that is subconscious, and we can't just ignore it, because then it can create problems with our sexuality. And sometimes if we ignore the eighth house, it can just make us want to escape of those taboo subjects like sexuality, death, sickness, and this will make us develop fears and blockage. So everything we ignore will still being kept inside us, and at one point it will just kind of explode. And now for the 12th house, if we ignore it, it's like repressing our problems and emotion. And the problem is that it can cause physical problems to our body, because our emotion is also part of us. It's related to our body, and in the long term, we can even develop physical problems, because everything is energies. Our emotional energies, our body also, and then emotion influence our physical body. And also, if we ignore the 12th house, it can create problems with, like, we refuse the existence of a spiritual world and something after death. And this, we can compensate it through addictions. So it can be, like you say, addiction to food, drug, alcohol. We just don't want to think about it. we need to face that at one point. And also, another danger of ignoring the 12th house is that we can we'll stick too much to the image we have of ourselves, with our ego, and also to our material possessions, to the people we are close to. And if we stick too much to something, usually what happens is that we have an event that forces us to let go. So this can kind of create some challenges and misfortune, let's say, about those things. I think that's it for the third part.
Okay, but that was that. So that was really the big dangers of not acknowledging and taking an active effort on the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th house. And so now we're really kind of looking at like what's the purpose of those houses and what makes them underrated in the first place.
So those houses are actually very, very important.
Yeah.
Like the 4th house, the purpose is to understand our childhood trauma, but also our generational trauma, because we need to know that we carry the thing from our past generation, our parents, grandparents, because through the DNA, some things stay. Like if our ancestors at a very tough time, like for example, they die in the war, we'll keep that inside us in some very deep subconscious parts. So the goal is to go to dig into that and detach from the generational trauma and burden. And the goal of the fourth house is to understand our family, its story, through generation, and our original parents. So it's always interesting to know where we come from, like what traditions, what story, how was the life of our parents, because it also influences us. Like most people believe it's just my life that influenced me, but no, the ancestors also played a role. And I would say that the fourth house is related to history, and that history is useful because understanding the past is understanding what happened now.
You understand that. You understand the past. You can understand the future. That's one of those natural quotes. No.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of famous quote, but I really agree with that. Is that the past keep repeating in some ways? Because if you look, the zodiac is a wheel; it keep repeating again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, if you look at Pluto, last time it was in Aquarius, it was a time full of war, revolution. The people stand out, and now we're coming back to this time very soon, so we can expect the same kind of thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, progress is maybe an illusion because we keep coming back to the same point if we look at the planets.
I like that. Progression may be an illusion.
Yes. Another goal of the fourth house is to understand our deep emotion, our emotional life, our inner child, and our need for introspection. So it's understanding our deep self, and then it's caring about ourselves to know when we need a long time, when we need to isolate ourselves. It's very important to recharge, especially for people that get a water sign in the fourth house. They need even more a long time. Another purpose of the fourth house is to develop our imagination and intuition. Is very, very important because, like I said, in the 8th and 12th house, we can't rely on our normal senses. We need this intuition,
Mm-hmm.
those senses that are more subtle. And one of the last purpose of the fourth house is to create a home environment in which we feel comfortable and safe. Like create this kind of ideal home in which when we come back we're like, I'm at home, I feel comfortable, I'm happy to come back. Not like I don't like this home.
That was a big one for me while traveling. Like over the 5 years or so traveling in different countries and stuff like that. You know, and I got a Mars in Cancer. That was a big impact. I was like, yo, it basically taught me how important home was without me really knowing. I was like, man, home matters. Like, I need to figure out what home means for me. And I realized like traveling really helped me understand that.
Yeah, Mars in Cancer need this to feel kind of safe and build this environment even when you travel. So I think this is challenging, but since you got many Aries placement, I think you like challenges.
Yeah, you know, I didn't, you know, the thing is, what's interesting, I never even recognized the challenge when I was in it. If I'm being real, like it was just an experience. You know, the whole thing, the whole journey was an experience, and like it was almost like one day I woke up and realized like I had what I wanted, like home wise, considering the fourth house, without even actually realizing the challenges that I've gone through. It kind of was just like a journey, just an adventure. That's how it felt. Like it felt like an adventure where now I have those things to kind of look back, and it helps me understand how did I actually get the home that I have now? Like, how did I learn what I enjoy about home? And it kind of
Mm.
just happened like a blink, like literally like an Aries, right? Like I just like blinked, and then like one day I'm like, oh crap, like, huh. I didn't realize I really went to these places. Like it's almost hard to understand that I was in some of these places around the world.
Now, what happened if we use the fourth house well?
Hmm.
Because if we use it well, then we have some kind of reward. What happened is that we will become more and more conscious. We will start to know our fears and motivation because the fourth house is related to the conscious part of our psyche. So we will know ourselves more. And also we start to know our family and our family story well. We will have roots, know our origin and where we come from. This is very important for going forward in life. And also we will be able to live in relationship in a healthy way. Like we won't, have kind of behavior like we bring our personal problem immediately, and this can make the person want to break up because they feel all the emotional weight. Because some people, they have so much emotional weight that they feel like talking about it immediately, and sometimes this can make relationship difficult depending the people you're talking to.
Hmm. 1000%. I hear that.
And another thing, we will be able to express well and easily our intuition, our imagination, and our inner world. This is very good to be creative and sensitive about what's around us. And we can even develop intuitive talents. I
I
think
had
now
to
we can
grumble a
switch.
little bit. I got a little hungry. I'm like,
It's all right. Now I think we can talk about the purpose of the eighth house.
mm-hmm.
So the goal of the eighth house is to understand our obsession, our instinct, and our hidden drives. Why we are attracted by this, why we feel so obsessed by this person. It's really digging inside our subconscious. This is more difficult because, like, the subconscious is not conscious. Usually, we need a psychotherapist or some kind of techniques. But this is really, really rewarding if you use it well. Because I will talk about later, there's many interesting reward to do that. Also, one of the goals of the eighth house is to talk about those taboo subjects like death, sexuality, sickness, and paranormal because they are important, they exist, and we can't just close our eyes in front of them. And also, the eighth house is very important to have a better sexuality and sex life because we can understand what we are attracted by, the way we like to merge with someone,
Hmm.
and yeah, we can basically improve our sexual life, because it's knowing ourselves and our subconscious. Usually it's where there is our fantasies.
My cat just got stuck in a plastic bag. Like,
Oh,
he just freaked out.
this is really a cat behavior.
It's really funny. He got like stuck in the handle. Like, you know how you get the part you actually hold?
Yeah.
But he's like a kitten still, so like he wasn't even really stuck. He just needed to like wait a moment. He tripped out.
Poor cat. So what happened if we use the 8th house well? We can express our drives and instincts in a conscious, often spontaneous way. Because if it's not expressed in a conscious way, that's actually very dangerous, because we can literally be kind of uncontrollable because our subconscious will rule us. And this is not the goal. Because if we're ruled by our subconscious, we will keep falling back in the same pattern, same trauma, and then you reincarnate and you keep falling back in those things. You never evolve. And what will happen is that we will also accept those taboo subjects. We will start to be able to face death, to face sexuality, to talk about it. And I believe that's much healthier to be able to talk about it in an open way than just saying, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Then we will repress it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all met somebody who had a repressed 8th house. It could be a run.
Yeah, that's very common. But usually later in life, they will start to accept, because life will make them face those subjects.
And there goes the transformation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll be able to work on our subconscious and start to understand it. And we won't be scared of therapy, and also use therapeutical way in our daily life. So we won't have this fear of what's in our subconscious, what's inside us. We'll be like, okay, I'm ready to go to therapy. I'm not scared. That's part of me, and I need to face it. Because some people, they will be scared. They will be like, that's out of my control. I prefer just forget about it. But the thing is that it will still influence them. They can't just forget about it. The thing is that we will accept and integrate the invisible, metaphysical side of life in our existence. So we'll start to be conscious that there is something beyond what we can see, that it's a very limited scope to just imagine there is nothing else. And, it's this kind of awareness about the invisible world.
When we get into that deep scorpionic talk.
Yeah. Another thing, we will be able to overcome better those difficult events, like the death of someone, being cheated on, difficult sickness, and we will be able to reborn from it and transform ourselves after. So the 8th house is our transformation power, as well as Pluto. It's really how we overcome those things. And like the phoenix, we reborn from our ashes. And another thing is that we'll be closer to our feelings, our intuition, and we will be able to accept it better and use it. So that's the next step of the 4th house, is the 8th house, because the 4th house is our conscious part of the psyche, the 8th house is our subconscious part. Together, they form our mind, and the mind is in the 12th house.
That's cool. That's a cool connection.
Yeah, I actually learned that from, it's a book about coaching astrology. It's a really it's a more modern perspective, a more psychological perspective, and like it explains the different part of our psyche related to the houses, and I found it really, like, I can really relate to that, so I wanted to share.
Yeah, can you actually say that once more? The 8th to the 12th and how it connects to mine?
The fourth house is our conscious. Our eighth house is our subconscious, and the 12th house is our whole psyche. So the conscious plus subconscious.
Conscious plus. I got it. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. And Ruby, feel free to share what your 12th house is in the chat. But I'm listening to you, ZoÉe.
I think now we can talk about the purpose of the 12th house.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of this house is to understand our whole psyche. Like I said before, we really dig inside everything of our mind. And also to understand everything invisible to us and having awareness about all the realms and energies. So we start to be aware that we are more than just a physical body, that there is more than that everything is energies, that, like, you know, if you know what I mean, it's like the awareness about the energetic world.
I mean, like I said, I got my Pluto on the 12th house in Scorpio, so
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. If anything, I knew it too early, and it brought me trouble.
So the purpose of the 12th house is to understand that death is not necessarily the end. Is that is maybe the end of our physical body, but we have something more than that. And this can help us to, solve this fear of death. Is that what we call death is the death of our body, but we still have a soul, a spirit, and that this is not dying like our physical body. And one of the last goals is also to develop ourselves psychologically. So by understanding our psyche, we can improve our mental health. So if we use the 12th house well, what reward we will have? So we'll be extremely creative and imaginative, because what will happen is that we will be able to transform our instincts, our emotion and drives into something creative. Because all those things are energies, but energies, never disappear. We can transmute it. We can make something else with it. So yeah, usually if we can use our 12 house planets, we can be creative. We can put that into something artistic, to dancing.
I won't lie. That took me some time at one point. I kid you not, though. Like, and I think it goes kind of back to when you said, like, when you talked more about what happens if you don't use the 12th house well, like, or what it, like the opposite. Like right now, you're talking about like if you're using it well, but like what happens when you're not using it well. I find that, like, hey, stop it. He has the zoomies right now. He's straight zoomies. He's just like freaking lightning. You okay? Okay, I will leave him. I'm gonna let him be. He's in his own world right now. I completely lost my thought. Go ahead, I'm listening.
You were talking about what if we don't use well the 12th house.
Oh, going into the imagination. Yeah, like I can definitely see, like, in those stages where I was escaping, how I completely denied what was possible from an imaginary standpoint, how to use that imagination more creatively.
Yeah, it's something that come later in life to learn how to use those energies, because if we're aware we can use it, we will just be driven by our emotion, but we don't know that we can do something more creative with it.
Exactly.
But some people won't even realize in this life, but it's all right, because everyone get their time to realize those things. Another thing, if we use the 12th house well, we will really succeed to have an inner peace, and we will succeed to know what we need to do in our daily life to feed this peace. So it can be taking a long walk, practice some meditation, some silence time, relaxation, some auto hypnosis also, etc. So we will have an awareness about what we need for feeding our inner peace.
I'm seeing here channeling energy as well. The channel the inner peace of the spirit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's related to the 12th house.
Yep. Channel. Yeah. The non-local.
Another thing also is that we will be able to feel, perceive, and accept a certain idea that, you know, we are not just there. There is a kind of creator, a kind of God, whatever you want to call it, but that we come from something that we don't see. And we will be able to reach a spiritual, mystical, or psychological level, the higher possible, and succeed to transcend our ego. So basically, it means that because the 12th house is the last house, is the peak of our evolution after a lifetime. So if we use the 12th house well, we'll be able to know our psyche, our mind so well that we'll really reach a level spiritually or psychologically that is very, very interesting. Like we'll start to be able to manage our emotion very well, manage our energies, and also have a very good intuition.
Mm.
And one of the last thing is that we will be able to face those hard time and challenges in life, because those challenges will start to have less and less impact on us, because we will see it in another way. We will know that everything happened for a reason, and that we shouldn't focus necessarily on the emotion we feel, but more on why it happened, what's the goal behind that. Because the 12th house is always about going behind what we see, is what energies are behind that.
Mm.
What's the goal of me having this event happening to me? And this can help us actually feel free from the kind of bad luck of life. Because is everything the way we perceive it? It can be bad if we see that it's a bad event, but if we see the positive side, it can be positive. And if we know the reason why it happened, it can also be neutral. It's like, for example, okay, that okay, this thing happened, but that's it. I mean, it should happen. And I think that's it.
That's really again kind of adding the meaning, right? Like it's that Jupiter influence on Pisces or 12th house type energy where you start finding meaning in the
Yeah.
suffering, and likely transcend the fact that it's suffering or never was suffering in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right. I would say the
Sweet.
12th house is like Jupiter Saturn vibe. It's a mix of them. It's like
Little
there's
combo,
a
right? Because you said the 12th house was like enjoy in the Saturn, right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the challenges of Saturn, but at the same time the reward of Jupiter.
You know, I always tell people like I love the rewards that Saturn give as well. You know, it has that lasting impact. You know, and it's like at the end of the day, you understand you earned it.
Yeah.
You know, you earned it. There's no freebies, and I feel like it's that much just more stable, lasting.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn
Yeah.
is very slow in time, and yeah, I think the 12th house can also give us a sense of patience, because when we're impatient is also a lack of of emotional management.
1000%. I mean, my Saturn return definitely helped me with patience. I can fully attest, it helped me really just be willing to just be still a lot more, like just to be still and realize, like, not everything needs to be worked for with like an action or effort, like physical effort. Sometimes the physical effort is for me to just stay still and lay down, literally take a nap. like literally sometimes I had to realize, like, sometimes you need to take a nap, or just to do nothing, like,
Yeah, it's
which is
important.
work in its own way.
Yeah,
Kind of has
Saturn is challenging, but teaches the best lessons in life.
exactly. I see Saturn in Sagittarius here. Sweet. So let me see this. I dropped in the comment and everybody watching, check. She has actually pretty easy, because literally it's called Easy Astrology by ZoÉe. But it's pretty easy because most of them are the same. So in the chat, if you check, and I'll put it up on screen just in case for anybody that doesn't have access to see it. Her Instagram is here. You're going to see her TikTok, which I believe is exactly the same. And then you have the website, pretty much exactly the same, minus the little dots in the middle or the little periods in the middle. So I definitely want to say, take a moment to check her Instagram. I found ZoÉe on Instagram. I don't personally have a TikTok, but if you do have TikTok, check the content there. You'll see something that I don't know. But that said, beyond that, also check out the website. Like, if you really resonated and I feel like you have a lot of 4th house, 8th house, 12th house dominant placements, this is one of the specialties that ZoÉe likes to actually dive deep in. And when I asked, like, what are the topics you love, she's like, these are the topics that I love, and that's where we came here. I would even say, if synastry is one of the things that you're looking to engage in, and make a comparison between either you, a lover, you and a friend, or even just you and a father, you and a mother, you and a brother. I'm a big fan of, like, doing the family synastries. Again, it might be my Mars and Cancer, quite frankly. Maybe that's part of why. But I feel like it's a lot like what she said, in here in this discussion today. If you can take these unconscious aspects of your upbringing and your childhood learning in your early environments, you can actually, reach a more stable form of love, uh, for yourself, for others, that you can give and dish out, and as well as for the collective. And that's magical within itself. So it's like, even if it comes down to you wanting to make more money, believe it or not, it's like, this is the kind of internal work that people are talking about. Like, making more money has less to do with your business strategy, much more to do with you healing your relationship dynamics. And these are some things that directly contribute to relationship dynamics. Like, so definitely take a moment to check her website. If you go back, and even if you caught this on the second half of the live, go back, check it out. I'm gonna try to see what I can do about time stamping some of these major big topics so that you'll be able to have some major access, because this is a 3.5 hour live, so there's so much information, so much wisdom, and a lot of engagement, a lot of different examples, especially earlier in the chat, with a lot of people dropping their 4th house, dropping their 8th house, dropping their 12th house. And ZoÉe gave us a lot of different insights, on each of those, very personal, whether it was Mars in the 12th, or I seen some moons in the 8th. Beyond that, ZoÉe, do you have any closing notes that you want to give us to just the people as they hit that thumbs up at the same time?
I think that's it. But just one thing is that currently I open for spot for
Mm-hmm.
consultations, for astrology consultation. I always open limited spots because that's a lot of work. And uh, if you want more information, just go to my website or my Instagram, and you'll be able to know about it. So that's it.
I saw that on her story. So, take a moment to take advantage. I just saw that recently, that she did open up those 4 spots. So, again, if you like the style, you resonate with it, or if you need to know more because you only caught the second half of this, go back and check. And that said, ZoÉe, I want to say thank you for taking the time. You came very well prepared. And that's always something that I'm going to be able to appreciate. And beyond that, you know, when the time comes and you're looking to do something in the future moving forward, just reach out. You got my number, or you got my contact. And yeah, like I said, if there's no closing remarks that you have, I'm going to tell everybody, thank you for joining the show. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. I hope that you learned something new. I learned plenty of new things today, and this is also super fun, you know, just to be able to collab and connect with other astrologers as well. This brings joy to my heart. And, you know, it really feels like, you know, humanity, people are moving forward, and the whole separation illusions are completely dissipating, which are great. So thank you, ZoÉe, all the way from Malaysia, checking in, 14-hour time difference. It just blows my mind. You know, it took us time to figure out, like, how are we going to get these timings right? And we ended up figuring it out. So thank you for, you know, making the compromises where you could. And I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much to you too for the invitation on your live, because that's the first time it happened, and I feel really pleased, you know, to come and share some knowledge and also connect
Super
with
dope.
another astrologer.
Super dope. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna press end broadcast here, but if you stay on, I'll be able to talk to you even backstage. And I want to say thank you, Ruby Red, checking in for the ending of this, and everybody else hitting the thumbs up. This is your AstroShaman Pernell Bobby. We are here generating an economy of harmony, leveraging human-designed astrology. So if you're looking for memberships on the back end, separate from receptive reading, hey baby, definitely go ahead and check it out. We meet bi-weekly. Learning some of the basics and getting into the details advanced as well. So step by step, I'll see y'all soon. Sending you some love.